Przez każdą minutę wolną muszę na za 5 lat.
Free to open the fridges and take what you need, and there is food on the tables right here, so help yourself, and we'll be starting in around 10 minutes. Thank you.
Tam na koniec uploadujemy i tam upload trwa 4 minuty.
No to pewnie obrazu takiego mają coś?
Właśnie nie, tam leci 25 malutki.
Okej.
No i właśnie tak w tą bibliotekę tą...
No, dodaj sylki.
No, i ona tam, jakby to czy nie, ale powinien taki krótko narobi single. I ten, jak tam ma synchronizację faktu.
Ten sam sygnał.
No, i zrobiłem testowe zmieniłem na bucket folderu samego. Więc jest tam kilka takich rzeczy, co ludzie mogą sobie robić. Bo ja na przykład musiałem patrzeć, że tam
Tomek, ty pracujesz jako programista, czy jeszcze uczysz się jeszcze? Okej.
Może po części trochę z IT, ale cały czas się uczy.
Okej.
Teraz ogólnie szukam stażu. No, mam takiego zwyczajnie.
Okej.
Już powiedzmy taki początkowy, ale kursik bardzo doceniam do zadania. W sensie, gdyby nie ten kurs, to myślę, że miałbym wiele więcej zaległości, które mi dało do myślenia.
Okej. No to się mega cieszę. No i co mogę powiedzieć? Wersja 2.0 będzie w przyszłym roku i będzie mocno jeszcze odpicowana względem tego, co jest teraz. Myśleliśmy przez te ostatnie kilka lat i teraz w swoim czasie jeszcze mamy no to właśnie będzie na pewno szybciej. Spoko. No i będziemy też pewnie trochę z tej sztucznej inteligencji teraz dla programistów działali. To mega ciekawe. Ale nie poszliście. Już nie ma miejsca? Ale to jest ciekawe. I będziemy też na pewno więcej czasu spędzali na tym, niż trochę inaczej będzie to wyglądało. Tak, no ja
Przemek chyba coś pracę.
tak, w Capify to jest taki hiszpański. Z dwóch stron tego samego. To moja dostępuje, dobra.
Co myślisz, że będzie ignorował projekcie że wiecie, w ogóle, że tak jakby chciałem,
Jak blada jest trochę. Ciężko powiedzieć, co jest lepsze. Konkurencja. Był ruch. Tak, cały wał.
jeśli będę stał przed wyborem, coś tam minimalnie przejąłem, ale stwierdziłem, że 53 minut mamy, zauważyłem nawet miesiąca na miesiąc. Ja się będę zastanawiał, czy właśnie z regularem, właśnie nie wiem, co też tak myślałem, bo pewnie jak jest regularny, to będzie mniej to mi się wydaje. To też jest prób, że jest parę tekmat obiektowych.
Tak, no tak bardzo. Tylko też nie ma tego nie wiadomo ile.
No i też jak popularniejszy.
Jest, to na pewno, to jest znacznie ekosystem jest bardziej żywy, tak? Bardzo wcale nie mało ludzi programuje, ale ekosystem nie jest tak.
Jak tak było, kilka analiz.
A z drugiej strony była dużo rzeczy mało. Okej.
Jest jak jest, ale wiadomo, co ludzie dają. Wiesz co, nie wiem, tutaj aż mało.
No to jest miałem takie struktury danych.
No jest jak jest, chciałem dokończyć Wydaje mi się, że na rozmowie, jeżeli będzie dostanę fragment kodu, takie pewne sprawy, że wybieram to mogę już z obecności powiedzieć,
że często są takie accessibility. To się sprawdza ogólnie teraz. No i często jest tak, że ktoś nie wie, co to jest, nie? Albo naprawdę tam bardzo taka powierzchnia definicja i to dopiero tak myślę stosowanie, no to tam zero, nie? To, że trzeba H1 na przykład używać, nie? To wiadomo, trochę trzeba tam lekko upewnić. Teraz jakieś mam audyty, przechodzimy i tak dalej, no od groma, ja też się cały czas mega dużo tego uczę, bo to jest temat rzeka.
Jeszcze wyciągnąłem wtedy była taka studia programu dla
zacząłem budować.
Są tam jakieś te?
Nie, póki co jedyne co się zastanawiałem, to że chyba handlowy tego Spotlighta. Bo tam to by się przydało pod nowe apy, zwłaszcza tak, żeby mogły po stila nie wciągać. Ale ja temat tak na pojechać.
3, 3, 3. Okay. Hi guys. Hi once again. We'll be starting our meetup. First of all, huge thanks to all of you for coming, because it's always awesome to see all the old and new faces. And every time, each meetup for few last months, I see that like 10 or 20% of people who come to our meetups are new people, which is awesome. Super fond of that. So thank you so much for coming. Huge thanks, of course, to Software Mansion for hosting us. They have really nice office and the all the stuff is taken care of. So I just had to come here and say hi, which is also great. And we'll be streaming that. And I think I'm on the stream right now. So if you missed some presentation, I don't know, if you chat with some of your friends through the presentation and you want to remind things to yourself, you can check out the recording later, which is also super cool. We're gonna have 3 presentations today, 2 in English, 1 in Polish. So if you are not a Polish speaker, find yourself a buddy who will translate for you. Of course, we have our great news anchor, Tomek, who will be presenting us with latest news from latest month or 2, all important tech stuff. And I think that's, other than that, I couldn't forget that. If you want to find the toilets are there, just outside the office. And other important thing is that all the beer and drinks are in the kitchen behind this wall. So feel free to open the fridge, take what you need, and the food. I think some sandwiches and chips and something. I'm not sure yet. Did not check it yet. Food is there on the tables. So also, feel free to take what you need. So you're happy here. Yeah. So I think that's all. I'm gonna have some other things to say later. Super cool to see all of you. And we'll be starting with tech news. So huge applause for Tomek.
Okay, mic test 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, we begin. Like I've been introduced, I will be talking about news from the JavaScript world. My name is Tomek Borowicz. I work as a software developer at Virtus Lab, and I'm writing a JavaScript newsletter. But without any further ado, let's get to the news. And we begin with React and Next.js. And if you are a React developer, you should definitely track what's going on with Next.js, because basically the main focus of React team right now are React server components. And the only framework that's really embracing them is Next.js. So right now, Next.js is basically a preview of features from React. And what's new in new Next.js? To begin with, the app router is stable. And what is app router? App router is a completely new routing that Next.js introduced in Next.js 13. It has been in alpha stage since then, and it changes pretty much everything. The biggest news is that it supports React server components out of the box. React server components at React renders something on the server and streams that to the client. And that's supported in Next.js out of the box, but there are a lot of small incremental updates too, like for example, layouts or loading and error states. And that's all now in Next.js 13.4 stable, the recommended way. And one thing that's interesting in this is that it is based on React Canary. And this is also a new thing, because React have been, oh my god, I feel like work from home right now. Yeah, so React have been releasing in the experimental channel, where they have been putting everything that's new. And now they put the new channel. It's called Canary, where they put all the features that are already stable that would like to release, but that they're missing something. And that's what the Next.js is based off. Okay. And there's one thing that's very interesting. It's React Server Actions. And if you have seen some memes about React becoming PHP, that's going to be the next part of it. You can look at the snippet right here. We have a form there where we pass as an action, we pass a function. Yeah, we've seen that in React, but here we have this use server shebang, I would say, in this function. And these functions will be executed on the server, and all the middleware, like making the request, handling the request, is done by React and Next.js. So it's interesting, and it looks really like PHP. Okay, moving to the next framework, we have Vue. We have a big release of Vue 2. Vue 3.3 have been released. It's been postponed for a long time, I think like half a year. They've been struggling to release it. And all the features in this release are concerned about the TypeScript. To name a few, Vue got generics component. I can't imagine how they worked without a generic component so far, but now they have it. They got complex type support in macros, and macros are basically the way to define the schema for your components, like what are the inputs, what are the outputs. And until now, Vue used type passed to those in their internal compiler, and those could be only simple types. Now it supports everything you can imagine, like complex types, imported types, utility types, everything. And last things, type slots, where you can define typed for slots in your component, so they're gonna fail at the compilation time instead of the runtime. So a lot of nice stuff for TypeScript and Vue. And the last framework, because last month we got something interesting in all the frameworks, Angular 16 have been released, and Angular in last year or two is developing really fast, like something changed in the team and they're adding new features like crazy. And the brand new feature they're adding in Angular 16 are signals, and you can recognize signals from other frameworks, particularly from Solid, but there are also implementation in React, Preact, and pretty much everywhere. And this is going to be built into the framework. And signals are basically a box for value that can notify some subscribers when this value changes. You get to the value by calling it like a function. And there are two utility functions that are also embedded into the framework. It's computed. That's going to produce a signal that's going to change every time any dependent signal is changed. If you're a React developer, you can recognize this pattern from useMemo. It's basically the same. What's interesting here is that you don't need to pass any dependencies array. Angular is going to be able to track all the dependencies automatically. And one more utility function is effect that triggers side effect when one of the dependent signals change. It's basically the copy of useEffect. And Angular added a lot of utility types, utility stuff to embrace it into the framework, like mapping between Expo.js and using it in the templates. And it's gonna reduce a lot of hard code that have been until now written in Expo.js, because Expo.js is great when you have to handle events happening over time, like aggregating clicks, throttling requests to the backend. But it's absolutely terrible when you have to emulate some state with it. And signals are going to solve this problem in Angular. We've also got non-destructive hydration in Angular. So hydration is a process where on the server you render something, send it to the client. Now client downloads all the JavaScript, rebuilds, for example, virtual DOM, and now they need to attach it to the existing HTML. And what Angular did until now was swipe all the existing HTML and put the new HTML. Now they're going to be able to attach to existing stuff. That's going to reduce some bug, and that's going to be more performant. And last thing, Angular is faster now in dev server because they use Vite and AS build as everyone in the community started. Okay, TypeScript 4.1. On the slide, I still have beta, but I think yesterday or 2 days ago they released release candidate, and we're going to look into it when the full version will be released. But one thing that caught my eye is the support for async JSX components. That's something that blocked the React team. They've been introducing in if they can put async components directly in the JSX, and they've been blocked as TypeScript was not able to support it. Now TypeScript added the support, and neither the React team or TypeScript team is saying they're doing this feature, but that's something we should track, because if they're adding this feature, it must mean something. Okay. Talking about things that we've been waiting a long time for, Storybook 7 have been released, and they've been publishing articles about Storybook 7 for I think, at least a few months now. And now it's finally here. And what we've got, they have rewritten all the internals to make it more composable, but that's not interesting. What's interesting is that now they support new frameworks like Svelte or Next, and now they enable community to write their own integration for their frameworks, so there should be faster updates for that and faster implementations for non-standard configurations, because that's where Storybook have been struggling a lot. They've created a new component story format, third one. Good luck migrating another time. This is the story format 2. And what I would like you to notice is how much less code there is in the component story format 3, because that's what they're advertising the most. And as the side effect, we got much, much better TypeScript support. Like Storybook is now better at inferring R types and is much better at it. And the last thing, I think it's not from Storybook 7, but from Storybook 6.4, but I didn't hear about it, so maybe you didn't hear about it too. In Storybook, you can write tests in Playwright, and you can replay them, and you can use it as a testing framework, but you can as well use it as documentation, or like you're developing and need to test something, so you can automate it. Very nice thing. And in this release, I think they added the code coverage for that, if you want to use it for your unit testing for some reason. Okay, Quick is the biggest rising star in front-end frameworks right now. And what it tries to offer. Why we're talking about it? We're talking about it because they got their first stable release now. And what they offer. Like we're talking on Angular, I described how hydration works. And what Quick team says is that hydration is too slow, and you can't optimize hydration enough, and we have some other solution. And it's called resumability. And I will try explain it my best. So what Quick does, they send the HTML to the client, and with the most basic, most raw configurations, that's all. When you click the button, Quick is gonna download the code parsed and executed. So they're gonna download the code for each button, each component. So it's gonna be very small, but that's the example. They know that network connection is slow. So what they did, they have a huge amount of code that's responsible for prefetching, and they give a lot of responsibility into developers' hands. Like you can say, this buy button is important. I want to download this small bunch of code for this buy button as soon as possible. But for example, this subscribe to the newsletter button is less important. You can download it later. And that's basically what they're claiming. That's with hydration, as your page is growing, you're adding another segment, another segment, another segment. It's gonna grow infinitely, time to interactive, because the page is gonna get bigger and bigger. With Quick, as you're downloading only the minimal amount of code, it should be linear, and everything is gonna be downloaded in the background with good heuristics. Users not gonna notice. Yeah, they're claiming that's the great idea. For me, it's a bit too complicated, but we will see where it will get. And why you should be interested in it, it's built by pretty recognizable people. It's built by Adam Bradley, which is former creator of Ionic, and Michko Henry, which is former creator of Angular. So people who know how to build a framework and who know how to sell the framework. And the last thing for today is Ban Bundler. So Deno is an alternative to Node, and Ban is an alternative to Deno. And yeah. They're focusing their marketing on being much faster than those two alternatives. They're using a language called Zig under the hood to achieve that. And they use JavaScript core instead of V8 to be so fast. But we're not here to talk about that. They've released the tool called Bound Bundler. That's going to enable us to bundle our application much faster. It's 225 times faster than Webpack. But if you're following anything related to the JavaScript tooling, you know everything is faster than Webpack at this moment. What's more interesting is that it claims that it's almost 2 times faster than AS Build. That's interesting. And what I'm missing here is TurboPack from Vercel that is built by former Webpack creator. That's rebuilt from the scratch in Rust, and they don't include it. And they have been showing very similar results. So it would be very nice to see how Ban Bundler compares with TurboPack. So a lot of is going on in tooling ecosystem too. And that's all for today. Thank you very much. If you want to talk about something, you can grab a beer. I will be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So right now, we'll be starting with our first presentation by Łukasz, and he'll tell you, I assume, pretty interesting stuff about using Expo in React Native. So huge applause for Łukasz, please.
Okay, I think I can start now. A second. Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to my presentation. First of all, let me thank you all for coming here today. The goal of today's presentation is to guide web developers who lacks native experience on how to build a native app. I won't get into all the details today because the presentation would be much longer and boring, to be honest. So my main goal is to just show you some awesome tools you can use right away to make your own killer app. Sounds good? If so, we can start. But before doing that, a couple of words about me. My name is Łukasz. I am a software developer at Software Mansion, currently working on Expo. You can find me on Twitter or on GitHub if you want. If you will have any question about Expo, about React, about React Native, feel free to reach out to me. I will be very happy to help you guys. So today we will be answering two essential questions. If and if yes, how can you build an app? But before we get into that, let me tell you a quick story. Not that long ago, I graduated from the university, and one course I took there was all about C++. For some reason, it was a very popular course, and I don't know why. And to be honest, it wasn't a great idea to be on that course. And why, you may ask? It's all because of C++, of course. Dealing with errors and other compilation problems can be quite daunting, especially if especially when it seems like there is no end to those problems and those issues. So working with native code, it's pretty scary, and it doesn't seems like a fun to me. So I learned my lesson, and for the next course, I picked something else. I picked something on a higher level. I end up choosing Java. No, maybe not the best, but you know. So the user experience was much better. The language has some flaws and problems too, but generally speaking, you can do things pretty quickly. However, it is heavily object-oriented one, so you end up with factorial that return you another factorial, which has to be provided to create another factorial. So yeah, a lot of objects there. And there is a famous null pointer exception that will give you some sleepless night for sure. And last but not least, some Java classes are just wild, and especially the ones which are used in enterprise solution. So I believe you have to own an ultra-wide monitor or even two to fit them in one line, basically. It's very hard to imagine how people code with that before ultra-wide. I don't know how they achieve that, but okay. So for me, the concept of native world evokes a negative and frustrating and frightening feelings, to be honest, and memory. So for you guys, you can feel the same. Like building a native app can feel like navigating a dark forest without a flashlight. Yet it seems challenging. Yet some people find joy in it. Sorry, but how? So the one solution and one approach you can do. You can find a parent or like some other tools that will go through on that journey with you. You can find like a tool which will do all the native work for you, and you will just write some like JS code and just UI stuff and business logic, and you don't have to worry about all the compilation and build steps and stuff like that. So you can find that guidance in React Native. But what exactly is React Native? It's a framework that brings the power of React to the native world, to the mobile world. Basically, you can still write your React code not only for browsers, but also for mobile devices. Additionally, React Native allows you to build a Windows app or macOS app too, although it may require some additional configuration, and I won't discuss that today. It's a little bit out of scope, but you can, in theory, do it. Okay, but how we can start? So I went to reactnative.dev. It's an official page for React Native. And I looked for a page which will tell me how to start. And I end up on that page, which is telling me how to set up my development environment. And I believe it's a good way and good place to start. So let me go through that guide with you guys, so we can all see what we have to do to build an app. Okay. At first, we have to make some choices. I have to choose my development OS. For me, it's macOS. You can choose Windows or Linux if you want. And the target OS. I was lazy, I didn't change that, so we'll be doing Android for today, at least for now. Then you have to install some dependencies. Node and Watchman. Makes sense. We are doing JS, so we have to have some JS runtime. Node is OK for that. And Watchman is a file watcher from Meta. That's the first reason why it is used in React Native. And to be honest, it has quite good performance characteristic, and I believe the second reason why they went with Watchman. But OK, we have to install that. Nothing crazy, we can do it. Then we need to have Java. Also makes sense. We'll be doing Android. Android uses Java. We have to have Java. Nothing crazy. OK, then we have to have Android Studio. Android Studio is an IDE which is integrated with Android ecosystem. It allows you to build an app and do much more. It has a lot of tools. It's a powerful application. So the Dovland is also huge and powerful, to be honest. So it will take a while to install that and set up. But of course, we can do it. And then, after we install the Android Studio, we have to install Android SDKs. That's also a lot of things to do. But OK, it's not the end of the guide, so let's go further. Then we have to export some variables. Those are needed for React Native to find some tools like how to start a build, how to start an emulator, so you have to export them. OK, it sounds like a lot of work to actually do to just start and build something. Okay, it doesn't look like something we are doing on the web, where you're just creating a project from one command and then you start. So it seems a little bit painful, but OK. Let's go. Let's go to the next section of that guide. And finally, we are creating an app. OK, that's a good step. Maybe it will be the end of that guide. Unfortunately not. There are more steps to follow. You have to prepare an Android device. You can use a physical one. If you own one, or a virtual device, you can set up a simulator or emulator, and it will work fine too. But you have to do it. Then you start the bundler. For React Native, we are using Metro. Similar, it's like alternative to Webpack. You can change it, to be honest, but I wouldn't do it in your place. So yeah, we are kind of stuck to Metro for now. But you are starting the bundler here. And then finally, we can build our app. And there is a command, npx react native run Android, which will build you an app and launch it on your emulator or on device if it's connected. You can also use Android Studio directly. The outcome will be the same, so feel free to choose whatever you like and prefer. But it sounds like a lot of work. And if you just want to try a new technology, try to build an app, you don't want to go through that guide and install everything and do it, because it will take a lot of time, and you just want to build and see if that technology is for you and if you're liking working on a mobile app, because the experience is quite different. So maybe there is something else, something we can use to not have to set up everything on our own. And luckily, there is. There is Expo. Expo is a toolset of things that will make your user experience and workflow, when you are working with React Native apps much, much, much better. I can be a little bit biased on that because I'm working on Expo. So yeah, but trust me, it will make your life easier. So similarly, I did the same thing I did in with React Native documentation. I went to the official docs and looked for first step guides or something like that. And I end up on that page, which is telling me how to create a new project and then how I can run it. Okay, so let's go through that guide. Maybe it will be better, maybe not. We'll see. The first step is a huge upgrade, in my opinion, because we are creating a new project already. There is a command which will bootstrap you a new, fresh project. And it's not the fourth or like fifth step. So I believe it's a nice improvement. Okay, what's next? We have to start at the developer server. So we are running bundler already. It's the second step. Okay, maybe we are opening the app pretty soon. And in the first step, you have to open the app. But how? There wasn't a step which tells me how to build it. If you read that description a little bit closer, you will see there is something called Expo Go. And let me Google it. What is Expo Go? Expo Go basically is a web browser for React Native applications. So in Webflow, when we are working on web pages, you have a browser which fetches your JS code, HTML code, and executes it. And you will have a page. And you can interact with that. You can go further using that tool. In mobile world, we don't have any browsers. You cannot just like download one app which can run everything else. You have to download each app, and then you can start working on that. So, but with React Native, actually we can implement a browser because React Native has the JS layer. So in Expo, we created Expo Go, which is basically a browser. So how it's working? How does it working under hood? If you want to open an app, it will make two requests. The first one will fetch some manifest.json. That file contains metadata about your application, like name, version, or like screen orientation and stuff like that, which are needed by runtime, which are required by runtime to make it a little bit more custom, especially if you want to change some like colors and stuff like that, or theme of your app. So yeah, that's why we have to fetch that. And the second request will fetch all the JS code and JS and assets. And after that, we can launch you an app. So Expo Go is pre-compiled and pre-configured. So the runtime is like complete. You cannot extend it. So, however, it has over 100 native packages that are included, and you can use them out of the box. You don't have to do anything else. You can just use them. So yeah, let me do a quick demo and show you how it does work. Okay, give me a second. Okay, and here you can see it. I think it's a little bit bigger. Okay, that should be enough. Okay, so here you can see that I've just created a new app. Nothing crazy. I just want to show you that was recently created. And here is that app opened inside of VS Code. And let me go through the files which are here pretty quickly. So we have app.js. It's an entry point of our application. Here you have things which will be opened when you launch the app. Then you have the app.json. It's a file containing all the meta information about the application. It's the file from which we are producing the manifest. So you can find here things like name of your app, background images, or sorry, user icons and stuff like that. We have some config, nothing crazy here, and packet.json, normal stuff, you know that. So let me run it. So if you go to the terminal and just run npx expo start, and will be wait a little bit, you will see that Metro bundler is ready. If you have Expo Go installed, you can just scan that QR code on your phone and the app will be launched for you. But for today's presentation, I will be using simulator because it's much easier to show you guys. So I can just press one button on the terminal, and that tool will start a simulator for me, and then it will try to open that URL inside of the Expo Go. Okay, here is a simulator. You have to wait a little bit for that to complete, but it should be working pretty soon. It's taking a little bit longer than I would like, but okay, we have to wait. Okay. Right now, the app, the code of your app was fetched by the Expo Go, and here you can see that is the first screen you will see in the fresh project. And now we can change that basically. If we go to app.js, we can change the code. Let me do a quick hi. And here you can see that change was applied. We can make that font a little bit bigger for you guys. Let's go with something like that. And we have our app and our changes applied in real time. It's not possible in a native application, like in traditional native application. And here, I would like to show you some more features that we have in a site of Expo Go. So you can open something called development menu, which allows you some quick access to some tools, like you can just force reload your app or open inspectors, like element inspector known from web. But also we can go to home, and here you can see the main screen of Expo Go, and that's how we know that app was run inside of Expo Go. And here you can just enter the URL of the bundler if you want. You have your history of app you recently opened. You can also log into Expo account, and if you do it inside of Expo Go and in terminal, you can just the recently opened app or your active project will be displayed there, so you can just click them. You don't have to interact with QR codes and anything like that. So it's much simpler, and to be honest, it looks like a web browser for React Native applications. Okay, and now we can go back to the presentation. So Expo Go has 100 packages. That's a lot. However, we will for sure will have a need in future to add some packages, which will be well maintained and recently published and so on and so forth. And for sure, it won't break your app, for sure. So there is a question: can I do it? Can I add it? And the answer to that question isn't that simple. So if that package contains only JS code and doesn't use any runtime-specific APIs, you can use it inside of React Native and Expo. What I meant by runtime-specific APIs, let me give you an example. So there is a file system module inside of Node. And there is a package called fspromise, which brings power of promise API to that module. And unfortunately, you cannot use such a package inside of React Native because React Native doesn't implement file system API from Node. So yeah, but if your package uses only JS, which is the standards, so the things from ECMAScript and stuff like that, and our business logic, you can totally use that package. But there is a second part to that answer. In React Native world, some packages contain some native code too. and you cannot use them inside of Expo Go because Expo Go was pre-compiled and pre-built. You cannot extend the runtime, so you have to do something else. So we have a problem. So what I have to do to use another package which have some native code. For instance, there is like you have a backend which uses some C++ library, and you want to use the same library inside of your native mobile app. And luckily, there is a solution to that problem. Okay, there is something called custom development build. Let me explain. So development builds are just like a custom version of Expo Go. So you don't have to use Expo Go for everything. You can create your own runtime, which will have only the code which is declared inside of your package.json. So if you have some packages that containing native code, they can be used inside of that. But to use it, you have to build it. And that's a little bit sad because we are come back into the guide from React Native. So you have to have Xcode on Android Studio. That's the one way of doing that. However, there is a tool called ES Build, which can do that thing for you. So can build it, and you don't have to have Android Studio or Xcode, anything else on your computer to start working with custom builds. I will show you how the custom builds work in a second, but let me tell you a little bit more about EAS. So in Expo, we have something called Expo Application Services, EAS for short. Those are cloud-based services that are highly integrated with Expo and React Native apps, which will make your life even easier. So we have EAS Build. It's a cloud builder when you can send a project, a React Native project or Expo project, doesn't really matter, and it will compile you that project in the cloud and return you an artifact that you can send to the store, install on your emulator or device. So with that tool, you can use all the native libraries out there without any further configurations. Also, there is another service called EAS Submit, which can take that artifact produced by EAS Build and submit that to the stores. And that's pretty handy because, if you are doing app development, when you are ready and you want to publish a first version of your app, you have to visit two places, App Store and Play Store. It's a lot of work. We can automate that, so we made a service for that. Also, we have the first service is EAS Update, which allows you to override the JS code on the fly in real time, in runtime, on runtime. So basically, when you're making a native application and you want to update it, you have to visit stores and upload a new version of your app, and everyone else have to download it somehow. And that's a little bit weird. In React Native, you don't have to do it because you can just override the JS code which was provided with app and download it from the internet. So in that way, you will have your app can be updated on two ways. And it's very handy if you made a silly typo or there is a bug because you didn't check if some value are null or not. So you can just update the JS code and everything will work smoothly. So yeah, that's the first service. Okay, and now I will show you a quick demo how you can actually create a custom development build. So right now we have to close the server, and there is one command to do it. You have to just type expo install expo dev client. Dev client is the package which is the core of the development build. After a second, and the package is downloaded and installed, we can build it on the cloud. I won't show you that today because it will take a little bit longer. But you also can just run it from the terminal if you have everything set up. So if you have Android Studio or Xcode, in that case it's Xcode because I'm building iOS. And now you can see that that things will be compiled. However, our folder structure was changed, and that's the important thing here. So you can see the iOS folder here. It was generated. That folder contains a native project of your app. So here you can find some like iOS specific things. I won't get into that like in details because it's boring. You can find some like objective C++ code or C++ code. It looks weird, so I don't like to touch it. So let's leave it. Yeah. So, but the project is compiling, and we can wait a second. Here you can see like C++ files and stuff like that. We don't want to touch it. Maybe it will be better to hide that output from you guys, but okay. For some nerds, you have some C++ code there. Okay. You have to wait a little bit. And of course, you can, after you build it, you can just remove that folder. You don't have to like store it or anything. It will be, it can be generated each time you are building a new version. So you don't have to bother about that folder. Okay, and now the bundler was started, and here you can see the same code inside of the custom runtime. I know it doesn't seem like there is a difference, but if you toggle the developer options, you will see that the menu is a little bit different. We want to make sure that the user experience is the same across all the tools, so that's why it's the same. But if you go to the home, you will see here that it's development build, not the Expo Go. And now, now you can see there is like a native app for that project, and we are not running that inside of Expo Go. You can just click here, and that's the same app. Yeah. And that was pre-built and only contains the code which are required by your app. So everything what is inside of our packet JSON is inside of that app and nothing else. Okay, we can come back to our presentation. So yeah, I believe I answered the question how to start building a native app, but let me summarize that once more and again. So firstly, you have to initialize a new project. You can do it by running npx create expo app and name of your app. Then you have to start a development server, running npx expo start. And finally, you can open it on inside of Expo Go or inside of custom native runtime using development builds. To build it, you can use ES build or local tools if you want. You can check out ES submit to submit that to deploy your app basically. Finally, you have ES update, which allows you to override the JS code. And I believe you have all the tools to build awesome apps. So thank you for your attention. Do you have any question?
I have one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can give you a microphone.
Okay, hello. I'm new in this world. For now, I'm learning only the typical basic React, but with those React Native, what category of apps mainly we can do? What is the main purpose of this React Native?
Okay, basically you can do whatever you want. It's just a like general purpose framework. So it's like you can just take a website, for instance, and make a native app almost from that same code base. Of course, there are some differences. Let me show you. Here you can see you won't find any divs and stuff like that. There is like a view or text, which is like a different component than they used, which are used in the web. But there are like solutions to that, and yeah, there is like even I can show you that in a moment. Yeah, I cannot. Sorry, I would have to install something. But you can also open that same project inside of browser on web. So there is something called React Native for Webs. So that cycle is closed. So we have a React, then we have a React Native, and on the end there is React Native for Webs, which basically wraps all that components. So Vue is a div, but it has that definition inside, so you can write everything you want. Basically, React Native is pretty bare bone in terms of what APIs they provide. They are just providing some views, text fields, and stuff like that. But you can use other packages from community, which integrates you with like a camera, media library, and stuff like that. So basically, you can find packages for almost everything nowadays because it's pretty popular technology. So yeah, you can build whatever you want, to be honest.
So this is working like React, but React for, but I don't, I can't, I don't know, maybe build some game-like things?
Okay, game-like things are a little bit more complicated because it will be very hard to make a game-like things inside of React because, yeah, you will be using some kind of canvas inside of that. There is a library called React Native Skia, which brings you power of canvases like the Skia renderer, which is also used inside of Flutter to React Native world. So using that, you can make a game, but it won't be much about React Native, but more about canvases and stuff like that. There is no like game engine for React Native right now.
Okay, so I have no more questions.
Okay,
Cool.
I believe
Okay,
I see.
yeah,
Tomasz.
I see more questions.
Yeah, I have one, because you mentioned that the circle is closed and you have React Native for web and you can share the code across React Native, use only the one type of components to generate the web app, Android app and iOS app. It sounds like it can't be true.
Okay.
So can you little bit
okay.
explain it, how it works generally, and is it working on a real project? Because you know sometimes there are things made just to make the things.
Yeah, React Native is a pretty popular technology and is used inside of a lot of projects, to be honest. But okay, if you can share everything, no, you cannot. Basically, there is always be some ifs or some places where you have to make some decision to split things. And that's annoying. Yeah, I know. You cannot use regular CSS inside of React Native. There is something similar to CSS, but it's not the same thing you are using inside of on the web. So we are working on that to improve that, and we are planning to add CSS support for React Native too in the future with Expo. Yeah, but of course, there was always things you can share. The layer, which is pretty easy to share, is some like hooks and stuff which fetching your data, because that's pretty much a common code inside of on each platform. Because it will work the same. It's React, so yeah. If you have a custom hook, you can just copy and paste it inside of React Native, and it will work. So I believe that's the best place to share things. Also, if you have like some how to say that. Some color schemes and things like that, some very minimal fragments of API, that also can be shared with ease, because you know, like the button, it's more complicated thing, but the color of the button can be shared, and you know, you are using the same code, so it's not like you have to rewrite that somehow. Because if you try to do the same thing inside of using Android Studio, using like Kotlin or Swift on iOS, you'll have to copy that code, the color code, to another platform. So if you make a change, you have to make it into places, and it's not great user experience. So it will help you with that. And of course, if you find some limitation to React Native, you can always like do things fully native. You can integrate that with everything, like with native libraries which are not which weren't prepared to work with React Native.
Cool. I think we have some more questions.
Yeah, so regarding the EAS updates, right? My question is there any advised way to deal with the balance between the EAS updates and the updates through the store? And part of that question also is, are there any limitations apart from the native libraries and the native code that changes? Like the scope of the JS code, are there any kind of limitations in terms of what you can update or not, and what should be the convention of running those updates?
Okay, so basically you cannot, via AES update, you cannot update anything, like everything, because it can only change the JS code. So if your patch requires you to install a new module, install new native code, you have to rebuild the native application. You have to rebuild the runtime, basically. So you can only change things that are related to JS and doesn't change the interface between native and JS code. And here you don't have any limitation in terms of changing the JS. And I would like, if you ask me about advice, if you should use apps like normal updates or JS updates, I would always go with JS updates if that's possible. So if you now are sure that, okay, I only changed some JS, some native components, some UI stuff or business logic, I would do it via EAS because it's much, much easier for you. And if you changed something like you add another library or you bump something, you have to go with traditional updates.
So also, if there are many changes done with the JS itself through the EAS, and somebody downloads the app from the store, those incremental changes that appear, won't it slow down the first initialization of the app or something like that? Are there any performance drawbacks by that?
Yes, of course, we have to download that JS code somehow. However, it depends on, you can configure that. So basically there is a couple of modes you can run in your app. Basically, you can force the update to be downloaded at the start of the app. So in that case, it will slow down you, and the performance will be not that great, to be honest. But also we can download the the JS code in the background. So you can just open the app, you have the old code, you wait a second, and you can reload the app for users, and the user won't see anything. Like there won't be a drawback. And if the update is downloaded already, the next launch will trigger, will use the newest code possible. So we are trying to balance that. But yeah, in some cases, with some configurations, there may be a performance issue.
Okay, do we have any more? Yeah. Okay. Whoa, we have more. Okay, we can take like 2, and then you need to go, after the presentation.
You've mentioned that you would have to install additional library for launching that application in web, right?
Yes.
Wasn't that the case because I was using Expo last year and it was working out of the box that you could launch it through the Metro bundler?
I can show you that, to be honest. So you go there. Okay, so the project right now, the starting project, doesn't include those packages because we want to make sure that the project will start up really fast. So we strip that. But the only thing you have to do is just copy that and install it. We can wait for that. Won't take a long.
So it was removed last.
Yeah, it was removed from the template, and now you can just do that and click. Okay, I forgot to copy one thing. Sorry. Okay, and now you can see that the app is working.
Thanks.
Okay, I've seen some hands here. Did I? Okay, yeah, I see. Okay, sorry, but it's going to be the last one, and later you can just find Łukasz somewhere.
Yeah, I will be here, so yeah, you can find me.
Okay, hello. I am wondering about the limitation of React Native choose between the native code and what kind of functionalities is kind of limitation for that technology?
Okay.
Thank you.
It depends on your use case. It's like if you want to make a game, for instance, I would always choose a native code because it will be much faster. React Native can like produce, and you can do an app which is like 60 frames per second easily. There is no like a performance drawback of that. But if you want to make a real-time game and you like want to make that it's working on every device and it's super fast, I would choose native code. And for anything else, to be honest, it's always better to start a project instead of in React Native to like quickly create a prototype, and then if you have a need, you can just switch to fully native. It will be much easier to write React code and native views and stuff like that. So I would always advise you to go with React Native at first.
Okay, I'm super happy that there's interest, but yeah, we need to take care of time. So huge applause for Łukasz, please. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think the sandwiches are pretty good, so you know you should go and take care of that. We have like 10 minutes break before next presentation. So yeah, see you soon. that there were supposedly underage guys drinking beer at our meetups, which, if it were true, would be not so good. There are some guys who look super young, but, well, they have right to look super young, and they are not underage. And my little question is that if anything like that happens, and if you see anything, happening what shouldn't happen, please find me at a meetup and tell me straight away, instead of waiting to after a meetup and inform me after the situation, because then I can react, actually, so that'd be super helpful. And please kindly take your seats, guys. We're gonna have plenty more time to chat after the presentations also, so no worries about that. Okay, I think we're ready. So yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm super happy that Kamil is here with us, because I caught him just a few days before JS Nation conference, at which he's giving the same talk, and I was happy enough to be able to invite him before the JS Nation to give the talk first time before the conference. So think it's gonna be a good one. So please, huge round of applause for Kamil.
One, two, 1, 2. Can you hear me? That's fine? Okay. Yeah, but he said that I shouldn't unmute this. Okay, perfect, yeah. So hello, my name is Kamil Ogórek, and today we'll be talking about something that everyone uses, but not a lot of people know about, to be honest, especially the internals of source maps, how it works, why we need them, and how we can make them better. So who am I? My name is Kamil Ogórek. I work at Sentry as a senior software engineer, where I'm doing mostly error tracking and source map processing, or any other errors processing, not only JavaScript right now. For my first 3 years at Sentry, I was working on JavaScript SDK. So if you ever used Sentry, especially in the JavaScript ecosystem, you've definitely used the SDK itself. And I'm also part of TRPC core team, and we are doing the APIs for end-to-end APIs in TypeScript. So what are we going to talk about is why JavaScript are the bane of my existence, meaning that the question that I get the most at my work for the last 6 years is why source maps are not working, or rather, how to get them right. Because trust me, this is the worst part of using Sentry, and I can reassure you this. So first, we won't be really going into details how source maps working internally. We'll be talking about the problems with source maps, because this is only the only thing that they really care about. What works, works, but what doesn't work annoys me a lot, especially that the support team goes to me always. What we need to understand, very, very briefly, is that source maps are a way to describe produced code, so something like transpiled code, minified code using Webpack, Rollup, Vite, whatever. There are so many to choose from in JavaScript ecosystem right now that I already lost count. Using any of the minifiers, or even using React Native. For example, in the previous talk, there was Metro Bundler, which also produces source maps. They also have some issues, but I won't be talking about any specific bundler or transpiler, but rather source maps as a whole. And source maps are very generic format. This is just a JSON file, which has some metadata about what happened during bundling or transpiling, minification, you name it. And it's used not only for JavaScript, it can be used for CSS, for WebAssembly. For example, if you are producing WebAssembly from Rust or from C, from any other language, you can use source maps. And if you are using, right now it's less so, but it used to be for CSS, you used things like sus or less. It could also produce source map, which then would point you to like the original source if something wrong happened. So the basic structure of source map is straight JSON file, nothing else. And there are only two required parts here. So the first one is version, which is version 3. And this is what I'll talk about later, because this is completely, like, it has basically no meaning. This just means that this is revision number 3. But what does this mean? No one really knows. There is no specification for this. And the only required thing here is mappings. So mappings, you can see some completely random letters. I won't be explaining in detail how it works, but basically each comma-separated value is when you actually encode it. It will point to either, actually it will change the counter of names, sources, and the column and line number. That's it. So every mapping, if you decode this, it will either like roll out number, for example, you are on column 0, we go to column 1, column 2, column 3, and we'll just count the occurrences in that mapping actually encodes. It's not that important for the presentation, so I will skip this. But if you want to know more, there is a great blog post from a friend of mine from Sentry who goes very into detail how it works. One thing to note is that all of those, so like names, sources, source contents, those are all optional. And keep this in mind because this will come very, very handy. Okay, so now we have the map file. So we have JSON file, which is usually produced. If you ever used like Webpack or any other bundler, usually set up like source map true. So instead of producing just bundle.js, it'll produce bundle.js and bundle.js.map. The map part is the source map. However, browsers do not know how to detect them, like no tool knows, unless you actually assume that file name exactly the same with .map is this file, which some tools are actually doing this. There is no way to tell that the file has a map assigned to it, unless you use the special pragma, which is the one at the top, so source mapping URL. And this is special comment, which is usually, this is also the quirk, it's usually at the very end of the JavaScript file, or any other, but I'll be talking mostly about JavaScript, at the very end of the file. And if the browser or the tool detect that there is this special comment, it will extract the path and use it as like the source of truth for mapping the errors, like minified names or location of the like the column and line inside the original source content, inside the original content. Or if you don't want to use the special comment, because some people may think, yeah, this is some security vulnerability, we don't want to expose our sources, whatever, right? You can still click right button, show source. But some companies decide that they don't want to do this, they don't want to make the work easier for other people, like attacking them or whatever. You can use the header and just inside the header encode the path that will be used for this map. I don't know how it's any safer, but this is what you can actually do. So once we have this, the browser, when it encounters an error, something like this gibberish, like uncaught error X on line 1 column. This is always funny because column, like I've seen columns that go up to like 6 digits. There are files like this in megabytes, bundle.js, for example, here. Instead of seeing this, if you provide this mapping file, so the source map file, browser can actually make sense of this, and it can tell you that, for example, uncaught error fetch user data on line 17 and column 2 in this specific file, assuming that we have the data, like this data in purple, which is almost never the case that we have it, like always. But this is called ad hoc debugging. So when your browser sees this, like this gibberish error, and it can translate it into something more meaningful, it's called ad hoc debugging, meaning that the browser knows exactly what is loaded. It can map this minified error to the original one, and like there is no other way that the browser will load code that just didn't crash like right now at this time. So you can be sure that the locations are correct, function names are correct, the files used are correct. Like this can be like this is given 100%. You can click on the, for example, you can open DevTools. You can click on the function name. It will go to the original source inside the file structure. It's great debugging experience, right? However, at Sentry, It's not that great because what Sentry is doing when it's actually monitoring the errors and it's getting those errors to ourselves, we still need to process the error. So you, for example, let's imagine you have an app and the app crashed and you have Sentry configured. You'll send error to us. But that's the only data that we have. We don't have your source files. We do not have source maps, anything like this, right? So what needs to happen is that you need to give those files to us, or allow us to scrape your servers for this, and we need to somehow figure out how to marry those together. So from the error that happened there, this gibberish thing, like what is the actual source map for the file? Like we need to somehow understand this. And right now it's like wild west, and there is a lot of guessing, which means that the main issue is that there is so much variety in source maps. Like you can have source maps which are complete full source map. Like you have all the data that you ever need. You have source maps that are encoded as base64 inside the JavaScript file. You have source maps which do not have source content. The source content as in like the original source, actual source used for producing the source map. You can have completely mangled file names there. You can have source maps which has no file names and you still need to guess something, right? So this is where the problems start to arise when you actually try to make sense of this after the error happened. The first issue is that lack of identity. You can have multiple files having the same name, so you have bundle.js and bundle.js map. How do you know which file is it? Like, there is no way to tell. There are no like timestamps or anything like this. You can of course use hashes in the file names, but this comes with other issues which I'll talk about in the future. So there is a very brief introduction what happens when you actually try to like process the error after it happened. You have all the files, you have bundle.min.js, you have bundle.min.js map, and some vendor code, right? Then you need to take all those files and ship it to Sentry. So you use one of those, like either CLI, the tool that's just a binary, and you tell it like, yeah, just pick all those files, like collect them, and then send it to Sentry. Or you use one of the plugins for Webpack, Vite, Rollup, EaseBuild. It doesn't really matter how you send it to us. And then you need to tell us at what time you actually produce this file. Because we need to somehow know, like let's say that I go to, I don't know, like software mentioned website and it crashed, right? Like, how do I know when the crash happened? Like, it happened now, but let's say that the code was produced 2 weeks ago. Like, you cannot really tell. So you need to tell us what was the release, and the release is completely arbitrary number, just something that makes it unique for you. It can be like Git hash or I don't know, like the date or the timestamp. It doesn't really matter. It just has to be something unique. And we need the dist, which you can think of as like a bucket for files, because you can have the same release. Like let's say that you are using this as a release. So last Friday, right? Last Friday, and this is the release. But you can have development, you can have production, you can have staging. And if error happens in one of them, we need to also know, because we cannot just simply guess, because the mappings will be completely incorrect. Like we can tell you that the error happened like in completely different file that actually happened, and it's way misleading than rather than helpful. And the thing is that you also the thing with the hashes in the file names, like you've seen there, I believe almost every bundler right now has this, where instead of like bundle.js you can have bundle-ab7 whatever .js, the hash of the file. I wouldn't even I wouldn't really recommend using this if you are using something like Sentry, because there are ways, and it actually happens more than I would like to produce the same hash for completely different sources if you're hashing the source map content. Because all the new browsers, they are stripping comments, they are inlining functions, they are changing function names. So you can have your app.js and you add some comments and you produce the new file. And the content is completely different. Like error, instead of happening on line 12, it happened on line 15 because you added 3 lines of comments. But for bundler, it was the same file because it will strip all the comments, and all of a sudden you have same source, you have same hash, and you just tell us that, yeah, this is for sure the file that you should use, but actually it's not. Like it's completely off in terms of like the position. So we have the files now, and the error happened. Like object X, no method, subscribe. How do we know which file to use now? We can extract the URL from the stack trace, from the first frame. We'll just use this one as an example. We do not care about the host name because we can just use wildcard for this. So we are left with this. We need a file which is called assets bundle min.js. That's great. But your folder structure for project looks like this. And now you upload, you for example say, Sentry CLI source maps upload, dist. I want everything inside the dist to be uploaded somewhere. And it applies to all the products. I'm only using like Sentry as an example because I work here, so I know how it works. And your files on the server will look like this front-end bundle.js, but you are asking for assets bundle min.js. They're completely different. There is no way to tell that, yeah, this file is actually this file, so please, if you see this path, just use this, right? There is no way to marry them together. So you need to do is you need to use some set of configurations like, okay, so maybe strip this front end from every file and then prepend it with assets, just somehow make those match. However, if you change something in the directory structure, like, I know, your coworker decided to just move the files, like one folder up, it's completely broken. Relying on file paths is very, very fragile. So how we can make it slightly better? Source maps, source mapping URL, it's pointing to any path that you can imagine. Like, it can actually point to your disk. Like, if you transpile code locally and you deploy it, source mapping URL can point to your file on your laptop, and you'll never know until you actually want to debug something and you see that it's completely broken, and now you're like, yeah, sorry. So how we can make it better is ask how other languages are doing this. So native languages, they are producing something which is called debug ID, which is completely unique ID, which is always stored inside the file. So the file is completely uniquely identifiable. You can tell that bundle.js, if you have 10 of bundle.js, you can tell apart each of them, because inside they have unique ID which is encoded inside the file. So we can do just that. We take the source file and the source map, or preferably source map itself, because as I explained previously, you can have the same source with completely different, like the original source, if the comments are removed or functions are inlined. We take the source map and we hash the whole thing, because we know that this will be unique. We hash the whole thing and we stash it in the very same way as source mapping URL, but instead now we use this number, like whatever number it is, right? It's just UUID. It will always be unique for your given file. Okay, so this is for source. Now we need to add this to source map itself. So we add this to source map itself, and now whenever we read the file, we can see that we need a mapping that corresponds to this ID, this unique ID. It doesn't matter where it comes from. We just do not care about anything here. We just need a file with this debug ID because we know it'll be unique. Like if you have a clash in UUID, you should probably just write an email somewhere because something went wrong. So we need this, right? This is the only thing that we need. The problem, another problem, is that how can you know that this is actually the debug ID that you want? Since the beginning of the browsers, since forever, the error.stack, which is giving you information about the error itself, it was always just a string, always. Like it was never different since the beginning of the internet. And this is the problem because every browser encodes stack completely differently. Like the library for, let's say, parsing this, it's like few hundred lines of code with plenty of regexes and plenty of if statements and like user agent sniffing. It's a huge mess. So what we need to do is convince some governing bodies that this is actually useful for us. So for every error, there should be a method that either parses a stack and gives us this debug ID, like in the first example, or there should be a global error static method which would give you the same debug ID for any URL that browser loaded, because browser know what it has, right? Like, just give me debug ID of this file. Like, I know you have it somewhere in cache. Just go there, read it, and give me the ID from the comment. Right now, this is non-existing, so you have to work around this, but it's a mess. Like, this is pre-requirement. Okay, now we have debug IDs, and the very nice side effect of this, it's also coming from the native world. It's called symbol servers. Imagine you have multiple apps, and if you are using Expo, for example, you have 10 native apps, and they are all written in React Native, and half of the code is completely shared. Instead of sending all of this to Sentry or any other company, you can just host this anywhere, like on, I don't know, AWS free bucket. And because those UIDs are completely unique, you can just point us to any random server and tell us like, okay, here is the URL, here is the server that has all the files. Just, you know, scribe through all of them and find the file that you need. Like, there is this bucket, and you just pick what you need. That's it. Like, the code there is shared. Because there we do not rely on any paths, like we do not need to find bundle.js or vendor.js, whatever. We just need a file that is using this unique ID. So it's very easy to share code between multiple projects. The second problem, which is way more visible to like day-to-day users, because usually if you do not do anything fancy with source maps, you just open DevTools, you see fancy function names, it's great, right? So like what should be fixed? This is way more visible for users. You open DevTools, and instead of seeing something nice, you see something like this. Like you see undefined is not a function at y, x, z, and some random numbers. So what should we do with this, right? This is the actual like post-hoc debugging nightmare. We somehow need to make sense out of this. Here's an example. We have a function, maybe, which is calling another function, which throws, right? And this is its minified form. It's all on single line, and somewhere there is throw new error. So what we want to know from this is that the function that actually threw the error is called call me. Like this is the only thing that we want to know. However, though technically correct but not useful, or at least not as much as we would like to, is that the engine will report to you that what happened is that this new keyword, so it's like line 6 and there's like column 13, so this new keyword, this is what happened, the error, right? Like yes, like technically yes, this is the error, but we actually want the call me part. And the problem is that it's not as easy to get out of this. We need to use a few tricks. The first one, so I need to also preface, all those three tricks can fail, and then you're out of luck, sorry. Yeah, you will get no information whatsoever. So backwards scanning. You take whole minified source, like the whole thing. You find the place where the error actually happened. So in our case, it's new. And you parse, or actually you tokenize your minified source. So tokenization means splitting the source code into the smallest possible pieces. So like even those brackets are like separate tokens. So you go to the token that actually caused the error. So in our case, it's new. And you go one by one back. You just jump token by token by token by token by token until you find the token which is called function. And by that time, you know that the next token will either be the name of the function that we are trying to find, which is xy in this case, or the opening bracket. If it's not the case, or if you are using arrow functions or const assignments or anything like this, yeah, sorry, you are out of luck. You will get nothing, but this is the first trick that maybe will work. And once you have the knowledge that what happened with this error is that the function xy actually caused the error, you can ask source map, okay, I have xy, it's on line this column like line 7, column 12, whatever that is. What is the original name? So you go to source maps, you find the token that's actually located in this specific position, and you try to ask like, what's the original name? Because source map encode this. But because it's optional, you may not get any name. If this fails, you have something which is called caller naming. So this is making a lot of assumptions. So going back to our example, this is how the call stack would work. What we do is we go to the error that happened, and we go one step up. So the pre-requirement for this is that you need to have access to all of this. So like the single frame would give you nothing. Like it's completely pointless to even try this trick. But you go to the stack that, to the frame that happened. So new error, you go one frame up, and you ask it, hey, what do you call me, like by? Like what was the name that you used? And if it didn't rename you or anything like this, it'll tell you like, yeah, I called you by XY. This is how I called you. And you have the minified name now. Now that you have minified name, you can go to source map and try to ask like what was the original name of this function. However, this won't work if there is this there is very funny bug that bundlers can introduce. If you have inline functions and the function inside the function has the same name, and you will go up the stack, it can report basically incorrect name because two functions can be called the same. So like you can have function X, which calls function X, which calls new error, but those are completely different functions, but they have the same name. So yeah, why not? Because we just minify them to single letters. And another case where it won't happen is that if someone either renamed you, so you can say like let foo equals bar, that's it, and the bar was function. Now it will report that it was actually called foo, which is not true. It was called bar, right? The original name was bar. And the second case is that if someone is using call or apply, so function call it methods, it will just report that yeah, you're called apply. That's it, and this all the information that you will get out of this. And the third one, the most expensive one, the most accurate one, but also the most complex one. So this is like the last resort. But the browser, all the browsers are doing this. It's called AST reconstruction. What is required for this is that you need an access to source map and original, minified sources, which is usually the case. Like if you are sending us source maps, the chances that we have minified sources, like 99% of the time. So what you do is you recreate complete like AST. AST meaning abstract syntax tree. So we go function by function, token by token. We just create a whole tree out of your source code. And instead of going like just asking what is the name of a specific function, we ask, okay, what is the token? So for example, I will give you an examples here. Here we have class foo static bar and throw some new error, right? So given that we have IST, we know that there is a class with this specific name. It has those specific methods, so we know that this method is, for example, called bar. And inside those braces, which creates scope, JavaScript scope, there is this function call, or rather like constructor, throw new error. And because we know the location of new, so like line number 3 and column 12, we can ask AST, okay, so what's your parent? So my parent is bar. Okay, what is bar? The bar is static method. Okay, on what? On the class. If we have class, what is the name of the class? And we can ask all those questions. The problem is that it's very, very costly. You need to parse all the minified sources that you have. It's fine for like ad hoc debugging for the browser because when they load them, they have like spare time to do this. But for us, if we parse like millions and millions of events, it's very, very costly. And the problem is that browsers and bundlers already do this, because if you want to bundle everything together and minify names and make sure that it all works, you need to create AST and just rewrite it from scratch. And then you can like mangle those names together. Other examples of this are, for example, instead of having throw new error, you can have something like, this is a getter on method foo on class A, or there was a like new B, which is just a constructor of this class. So instead of trying to redo this all heavy lifting after the fact, what if the browsers, or rather the bundlers and the minifiers, could actually, do this for us? So what they can do is they can encode all the scoping that I just presented from AST into the source map itself. Then we can say that, okay, we are, for example, line 17, which means that we are somewhere in between innermost scope and foo. So we know that all our parents are like inside those scopes. And we can use this information to recreate the whole JavaScript call stack, like doing basically nothing, because this would require you to use binary search, which is very, very cheap in terms of like memory usage and CPU cycles. There is already effort from Bloomberg doing this, which is called Pasta Source Map. This is format exactly explained here, where they are trying to encode all the information about JavaScript scope inside the source map. And now I'll go quickly through a few small bugs that are still inside source map. The first one is that, well, it's not a bug, but it's something that allows all those bugs to happen, which is lack of conformance tests. And conformance tests, if you haven't heard of it, it's a set of tests that make sure that you, a person who implements JavaScript or any other thing, in our case it would be source map, did it correctly. If your browser do not pass conformance tests, it means that it's not compliant with the JavaScript specification, and you need to fix something. And this is the first issue that I encountered when I actually started working with Sentry. We have this feature which shows you a few lines up and a few lines down, like below and above the function that actually true. And for this, you need original source. You need access to all those lines, because otherwise, how can you tell, right? And as I said before, there is no requirement for you to give anything to source map. So those are all optional. So there is no source content, so we don't have access to all of those lines. But if you have files, there is a chance that you uploaded those files to us, or they are somewhere on your servers, so we can maybe scrape them. However, the problem is that every part that's used here, so here it's URL from the error, this is source mapping URL, and this is like files array. Those are all completely arbitrary. There is no specification that will tell you that, okay, source mapping is relative to this one, but there's like path traversal, but this path traversal will actually go outside of the scope. You cannot go like backwards further than example.com. Then you have some special webpack namespace, which you need to trim. Then you need to connect those paths together. It's like completely wild west. And the function to like do this seemingly easy join on two strings right now for us, it's like over 50 lines of Rust code with a lot of unit tests, and we still probably didn't cover all of those. What is column means that you would guess that it's such a simple question, right? Because what this code can produce, there is function what which throws, nothing else, right? Just this. So let's see what browsers will actually tell us on the console log when we ask for its stack. Okay, so Firefox is cool, line 7, column 13. Chrome is column 16, and Safari is 19, right? So what's happening? So Firefox is clever enough to say like, yeah, I can handle emojis, like see those fires, those are new emojis, they are UTF-32 code units. This is one character, like I can handle this, so this is one character each. Chrome and any other V8 browser is like, yeah, like, not really, maybe, but those are actually two UTF-16 code points. This is not a single code unit, this is two code points, meaning that the unit is made of points. So to like make it very brief, the fire is one, let's say one character which is made out of two sections. And Chrome and other V8 browsers are counting those two sections. And Safari is like, yeah, this, you see this what, this function call, yeah, this is not the token that I want to use. I want to use open bracket. Because like, why not? Yeah, you need to use this, right? But this is not even the worst. This is even worse. Like, you know, if you need to name something that's bad, but if you have one by one somewhere in your code, yeah, good luck finding this. We have this, again, very trivial function what throwing error. If you ask some tools, okay, what are the possible tokens here? So the first token is function, space, and the second token is name of the function, which is like, cool, yeah. But then you open the same code in a completely different browser or completely different tool. Yeah, no, actually the first token is function, and the second token is like space, what? Which means that now when you are trying to match the token in the source map, like to the original location, you cannot just say, yeah, give me a token that's on location like column 6. No, you need to tell, okay, give me the token that's at least column 5, but maybe like +1, maybe, because you never know. This is the same type of issue. You cannot be sure that this is actually source map, because source map is just JSON. If you have JSON file with version 3, plenty of tools will just tell you, yeah, this is source map. Like, I can use it for sure. Even if it has completely different name, like .js, if it has version, it will tell you that this is map. If not, some people are using .map extension, and they're like, yeah, this is for sure map, like no matter what. Maybe they are sometimes looking for mapping, but not really, not always. And the only way to fix this is using something which is called JSON schema, which like formalized way to define how JSON can look, and if it looks a specific way, we can assume that this is the thing that we're actually looking at. So for something that's been used by a lot of browsers and tools and engines, and it's like in the core of debugging ecosystem for all the browsers, there's been a very little talk around so the first one, the first revision, happened somewhere inside 2009. We cannot really tell because the official document is locked right now. The second revision was 2010. And the third revision was 2011, 2014. Something like this. And if you've ever used source maps and you try to find any information about, like for example, how should I implement X? There is no other way that you've seen one very well-known page in this ecosystem, which is this Google Doc document from 2012, which is in this, well, even 2011, sorry, created 2011, which is in this exact format till April this year, until a friend of mine actually translated this to specification format. This was the source of truth. This was like completely random document in some Google Drive made by someone from Google. This was official documentation for the source map. And it's in the core of everything. So right now it looks like this. You can actually go and read it. You can evolve it. There is open GitHub repository for this. If you'd like to ever spend some time reading specifications or RFCs or proposals or issues about some specific format, which is very widely used. So if anything changes, if any changes are done to source maps, you can be sure that it'll be mirrored in every tool that you've ever used. And if you want to somehow make it better and try to help us, there is a few different ways that you can contribute. There is Matrix channel, which is free to join by anyone. There are open meetings. Right now, Source Map Group has been taken under TC39, so we are officially under governing bodies starting this week, I believe, or last week. And there is official, if you want to join like those meetings, you can just fill out Google form and you'll be given invitation on Google Calendar and you'll meet all your fancy rockstar developers from Google, Facebook, Apple, or whatever. They're trying to solve this as well, and so far, like 12 years and more, no one tried. And there is official GitHub repository. It's completely public. There are all the RFCs. All those problems that I talked about are listed there. There are possible solutions for them. There is discussions. Those, if you want to somehow contribute and make this world, debugging world, better, because it affects all of us, just feel free to join any of those channels, and that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I know why source maps are fucked now. Do we have questions? Anyone? Okay, I see a question.
Hello. So, such a question. So you've mentioned that at some point you have AST from the browser, but as I get it, you perform those analysis on the backend. Yes. So how it's connected, the browser and the backend? You have to do the same work the browser does. So you run the browser?
No. So we wrote completely custom solution in Rust to do this.
Yeah, which you the browser.
Yes.
With AST.
Yes, it's completely open source. It's called JS Source Scopes, if you are interested. It's fully written in Rust. You just give it minified source and the minified source and the source map. It'll give you the whole AST, including all those scope information, line numbers, column numbers, names, the parents, children, relationships, all of this. It's fully open source. So we have to do the same work that browser already does.
Hi. I would like to start a new project. What's your recommendation for source maps and what's the setup? I would like to use Sentry as well.
Mm-hmm. My recommendation.
Where to put source maps?
Yes. So I would say the most reliable way is you use sources contents, which is one of the options, like in Webpack or in any bundler, which means that the whole original source is embedded inside the source map itself. It's usually very heavy because it contains not only mappings but also all your source code. But inside a single file, you have a single source of truth, which will be always correct. So do not rely on uploading sources separately, minified source separately, source map itself separately. Just have everything inside the source map file, inside a single file. It's up to you, because it can be, if you are serving this from your own server, as long as you have source mapping URL inside the content, we can reach it. We can just fetch it. You do not have to upload anything.
Okay. Looking for another questions. Yeah, I think everybody's. Oh, cool.
Yes, thank you for your talk. And actually, this term is new for me. So, as a beginner, where can I use it, or should I use it? And for example, what are the advantages of using it?
You mean the source maps themselves?
Yes, yes.
Oh, you are already using this. Like even if you don't think you are. So I'm not sure if I can. Let's see if I can do this here.
As I understand, it's mainly about solving bugs. I mean, debugging tool mostly. But if I don't solve bugs.
Oh, then like if you do not care about bugs or seeing your source code in production after the fail happened, you do not need to worry. It's only for debugging purposes.
Great, thank you.
Shortly, you don't have to care.
Yes, it's only if you want to understand where the error happened. That's it.
Okay, that was a good one.
Why don't we ask CEO of Amazon, Google, and Microsoft for sitting in one table and create some specification for that?
Well, that's a good question, but the thing is that they tried, if you go to GitHub repository, the work has been going since like 2015, I believe. The thing is that no one wants to touch it, because if you make any simple change to source map, all the tools will most likely break. That's why we need another revision, which is revision 4, which will basically make the clean cut and say like, starting the specification, if you don't support it, we are sorry. You basically cannot do it cleanly. This is the main problem. So it requires a lot of time to being invested.
Yeah, but you know, happily, Kamil is one of the people who actually tries to make it work. So, you know, happy for us.
Hi.
Yep.
Probably simple question, but without this tool, right now in production, I have a code compiled and I want to debug because, you know, girls tell me that there is some error or a debug. What would you suggest how to do in this situation? Should I go to some commit, make a build, put source map to a browser regarding that, or something else? Thank you.
Yeah, so without the source maps, the main thing that you are missing is actually knowing the name of the function that called, right? Because in DevTools, you have this prettify source button. So it can actually take your bundle and, well, it'll somehow make it, well, readable, somewhat readable, because you'll see like the structure of the code. The thing the thing that you won't see is the original function name, the original file name where it happened. So it will be all nested in, say, like bundle.js. But what you need to happen is you somehow need to generate those source maps and like retrigger the error. This is the only thing. So once the error happened and you didn't have source maps in place, there is no way to redo this cycle.
Okay. Nice. Do I see any more hands? I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again. So now, before we have a little break, I just wanted to tell you I have 2 tickets for 2 conferences. I'm gonna. It's kind of accident because, as I said, Kamil is gonna be speaking exactly in a week at JS Nation in Amsterdam, and by accident I have 1 ticket for this conference. It's in a week, so I know, a bit in rush. But if anyone wants, you may get the tickets from me. And also I have 1 ticket for Meet.Js Summit in Wrocław in September 29th. So you can also get a ticket for Meet.Js Summit, and because I'm a greedy bastard, the easiest way to get any of those tickets is to come to me with a proposal of a presentation at Meet.Js. So, find me. And if you want to make a presentation, I'm gonna give you ticket for that, for any of the conferences, you know, faster the better. If no one wants to make a presentation, we're gonna raffle at the end of the meetup, so, you know, somehow I'll give those tickets to you. Yeah, so I'll be, you know, available in a minute somewhere around. If you want to get, I'd be glad to give you. And yeah, now we have like 10 minutes break, so grab more beer, grab more sandwiches, and see you soon.
instrukcja projektu. Także też wiadomo, że w ten sposób wiadomo, że musimy się zmienić, że za 3 miesiące powiedzmy nową rzeczą, jak będzie normalnie zmieniamy teraz tam go nie wpuszczam. Za wszelką cenę trzeba unikać takie przodowe miasteczki, czy takie nie. Ja wychodzę z założenia, że jak aplikuję na staż, no to wiesz, to raczej nie ma co teraz i też jak spojrzysz te ile wymagania na stażystę, no kiedyś parę lat temu to wystarczy, że wystarczyło na większy HTML, to się brać. Wtedy nie był taki mindset, że on tak nie i nie napisał tak sobie rejestracji, i później było zapytanie, że nie wiedział co będzie. Na jeden temat, wracam do tego, co potem nie znajdę, że w sumie praktyka, że to co dawniej ludzie, to nawet stażu nie tak teraz, to dawniej junior był taki, że trzeba było znać to co teraz, no na stażu nie teraz trzeba, no fajnie wygląda perfekcja. To też jest kwestia sama recesja, dawniej ty normalnie na juniora wystarczyło HTML, JS, jak znaleźć tutaj YouTube, wcześniej tylko rynek juniorów, rynek recesja, firmy redukują zatrudnienie i później masz też seniorów na rynku i się okazuje, że też jest ciężko wejść do roboty. Jako osoba, która działają jakoś z kim ja robię zawsze coś takiego, że masz pracujesz z prosikiem, patrzysz sobie wariaty czasowo to się rozchodzi, nie? Sama nauka programowania, która zajmuje samo to jest podstawy ogarnięcie mniej więcej tego, a rekrutacja staży to 2 miesiące. Miałem tam programowania, głupie programowanie to było, ale jakoś mi to nie podobało. Dopiero potem sam z siebie i dopiero mi to kliknęło. W zasadzie to jest też, jak ci się coś samemu spodoba i ty ze swoim własnym końcem zrobić, to musisz zaangażować. I wtedy mi to kliknęło, mi się to spodobało. Ale jak już zrobisz praktycznego Expo w robocie, to jest
Trzy, 13. Chwilowo, ponieważ ostatnia prezentacja od Huberta będzie po polsku, to ja też sobie pozwolę po polsku. Będziemy się zbierać, jak możecie, to weźcie piwko, weźcie jedzenie, usiądźcie sobie wygodnie. Dzięki wielkie, dzięki wielkie. Jasne, oczywiście, no, nie zapomnę. Także zapraszamy, zapraszamy. Ależ nie, chyba nie jest. Sprawdź, czy zagrzane. Czy zagrzane. Dobrze, prosimy. Cudownie. Jeszcze widzę, że tam chłopaki w te piłkarzyki, to jeszcze 5 minutek im damy, co? Dobrze. Tak jak mówiłem. Yeah, the last presentation is in Polish language. So as I said, you need, if you do not speak Polish, you need to find yourself a translator buddy. Yeah, think we can go. Think everyone's ready. Okay. Dobrze, to jest w sumie temat, co ja się sam bardzo chętnie dowiem, ponieważ do tej pory zawsze jak wychodzili jacyś tam następcy i konkurencja Reacta, to zawsze myślałem, że tam chuj z nimi. Tak dokładnie, basically jest. I w większości wypadków wydaje mi się, że miałem rację. Także czekam jeszcze na ten framework, który jakoś Reacta zdetronizuje. Zobaczymy, może będzie solid, także może Hubert nas przekona. Wielkie brawa dla Huberta.
Jeżeli chodzi o prezentację, tak jak mamy w tytule, Solid, następca Reacta, raczej nie wiem, czy nie pokusiłbym się o dodaniu znaku zapytania, bo tak naprawdę tą odpowiedź na to pytanie postaramy się odpowiedzieć na końcu tej prezentacji. Ale jako, że wszyscy dodają, to też dorzuciłem taki slajd. Jeżeli chodzi o mnie, jestem frontend deweloperem w firmie Volt. Osobiście kocham koty, mam 2, więc wszystko, co jest związane z kotami, to od razu trochę ostrzegam, może się ich pojawić w trakcie prezentacji. Dobry serial, od czasu do czasu pograć w piłkę. Jakby ktoś miał jeszcze jakieś pytania po prezentacji czy coś, to zapraszam na Twittera albo gdzieś tam poprzez GitHuba można mnie jeszcze znaleźć. O czym będzie prezentacja? Na początku przedstawimy sobie szybki zarys, jakby czym w ogóle jest Solid. Zrobimy sobie takie płynne przejście, jakby co on w ogóle nam oferuje. Potem dokonamy sobie porównania Solida z Reactem, głównie pod względem budowy, komponentów. Przejdziemy sobie chwilkę przez performance i sam build size. Spróbujemy sobie przepisać małą apkę z Reacta na Solida, zobaczymy jak nam to pójdzie i tak naprawdę czym to się będzie różniło. No i na końcu odpowiemy sobie na to właśnie pytanie, czy Solid tak naprawdę będzie następcą Reacta, czy w ogóle będzie w stanie jakoś mu zagrozić. Od razu na wstępie też dodam, że sama prezentacja to nie będzie zagłębianie się w super szczegóły implementacyjne, nie będziemy wchodzić głęboko w kod. To jest raczej taki sneak peek, żeby zachęcić Was do tego, żebyście sami sprawdzili tak naprawdę, czy jest to coś odpowiedniego dla Was. Dobrze, więc czym tak naprawdę jest Solid? Solid jest to biblioteka open source'owa napisana w 2018 przez Ryana Carniato. Chociaż ciekawostka, pierwszą taką stabilną wersję uzyskała dopiero w 2021. Czym ona się cechuje? Takie dwie rzeczy, po których można ją rozpoznać, to jest to, że udostępnia deklaratywne API, trochę jak w Reactie przy użyciu JSX-a i jednocześnie to, że jest reaktywna. Tu już koledzy też wspominali, sygnały i wszędzie sygnały. Tak, no i jedną z taką jego cech, którą też się bardzo promuje, jest to, że jest okrutnie szybki i benchmarki tak naprawdę zjada na śniadanie. Jedyną rzeczą, która jest szybsza, jest tak naprawdę samo Vanilla.js, ale to też przez to przejdziemy. Okej, dobra. Przejdźmy sobie do tego, co nam Solid oferuje. Jeżeli chodzi o komponenty, sam autor w swoim, nie pamiętam już dokładnie gdzie to było, albo na którymś z wywiadów, albo gdzieś na swoim blogu, wspomina, że w Solidzie komponenty to jest tylko tworzenie granic. One nie powinny zawierać w sobie logiki, logika powinna być tak naprawdę wypchnięta. Komponent to jest część interfejsu, który ma się pojawić tak naprawdę w przeglądarce. Nie mamy tam pchać po prostu nie wiadomo jakich metod, które będą gdzieś tam jakąś logikę biznesową w sobie zawierały i tak dalej. Nie. Są to zwykłe funkcje, tak naprawdę bardzo podobne do komponentów funkcyjnych w Reactie,
ale to sobie jeszcze zobaczymy przy porównaniu, tam sobie powiemy o tym trochę więcej. Solid też udostępnia nam takie specjalne komponenty, można powiedzieć. Ma taki zestaw komponentów, dzięki którym trochę może nam ułatwić pracę. Z niektórych z nich mogę wymienić for do iterowania po elementach. Jakby trochę się w niego wgłębić, to widzimy, że w propsie przekazujemy po prostu listę, dostajemy, możemy przekazać fallback, zanim wszystko się doładuje i jako to jest function as a child, po prostu musimy napisać funkcję, która jakby przekaże nam element z tego komponentu, z tej listy, którą tam przekazaliśmy. Mamy komponent show, on może się troszeczkę kojarzyć z suspensem, zanim nam coś się doładuje, jakiś warunek się spełni, no to jakby pokażemy fallback, a dopiero potem pokażemy ten komponent, który tak naprawdę jest jakby między rozpoczęciem a zamknięciem naszego komponentu. No i switch match, który też może kojarzyć się z routingiem od razu. Taki trochę switch case, w którym możemy operować bezpośrednio na komponentach. Jest ich więcej, zachęcam do spojrzenia, ale na razie nie będziemy się aż tak wgłębiać, raczej jako ciekawostka. No i reaktywność, sygnały, jeszcze raz sygnały, jak Mobex, jak Vue, jak Svelte, Solid też używa reaktywnych zmiennych, które nasłuchują po prostu na zmianę. Co jakby nam to daje? Daje nam na przykład to, że przy porównaniu zobaczymy sobie, że przy nie wiem jak to nazwać teraz, bo w Reakcie byłby to odpowiednik tak naprawdę hooków. Nie będziemy musieli się martwić o tablicę zależności, bo przez sygnały to wszystko zostanie ograne, bo jeżeli jakaś zmiana się zmieni, dostaniemy jako subskrybent po prostu sygnał i rzeczy zostaną zupdate'owane. Zachęcam do wejścia sobie tutaj, zostawię linka do bloga właśnie Ryana, twórcy Solida, który napisał cykl artykułów. Nie jest to bardzo długie, ale możemy rzucić sobie na to okiem. W drugiej części na przykład jest, jak od zera stworzyć sygnały, metody, ten hook, create signal, który będzie odpowiednikiem naszego use state'a, jak zrobić to w sposób reaktywny. Oczywiście tutaj jest to pokazane w sposób, nazwijmy to karkołomny, czysto demonstracyjny, bo wiadomo, wszystkie te biblioteki, które będą tego używały, one mają pełno optymalizacji, mają clean-upy, mają zrobione rzeczy, żeby podwyższyć performance, więc to jest raczej fajnie przejść przez to, zrobić sobie z tego, nazwijmy to Hello Worlda, ale raczej produkcyjnie bym tego nie używał, bo potem będziecie przeglądać centry i szukać source mapy w poszukiwaniu swoich błędów. Więc tak, raczej na tym bym się aż tak nie skupiał. Dobra, jeżeli chodzi o state management, natomiast tutaj przejdziemy sobie szybciutko do przykładu, ale jeżeli chodzi o Solida, to tak naprawdę lokalny i globalny state management możemy wyróżnić tylko z nazwy i z tego, gdzie tak naprawdę te rzeczy będą się znajdowały. Bo przez to, w jaki sposób Solid jest zaimplementowany, możemy stworzyć sobie to tak naprawdę wszędzie. I tutaj przejdziemy do przykładu. Mam tutaj prosty komponent z naszej zresztą mapki, którą będziemy przekazywać, napisany już w Solidzie i mamy tutaj element, gdzie tworzymy sygnał, tak jak mówiłem, trochę odpowiednik naszego use state'a, no i mamy jakiś handler, który będzie nam ten state, jakby ten increment, tą zmienną po prostu zwiększał o 1. No i gdzieś tu na dole mamy przycisk, którym będziemy mogli sobie to zmienić. Jak przejdę tylko do... Dajcie mi sekundkę. Do naszej aplikacji, to widzimy tutaj po mojej lewej stronie aplikację, która jest napisana w Solidzie. No i widzimy, że to nam się zwiększa, wszystko działa i jest super. Ale zwróćmy uwagę na jedną rzecz. Mamy to w środku. A jak już wspomniałem, state management w Solidzie tak naprawdę jest wszędzie, jak to autor mówi, więc możemy sobie zrobić równie dobrze coś takiego. Nie ten skrót. Zapisuję I w tym momencie z naszego lokalnego state'u można powiedzieć, że zrobiliśmy globalny. Zobaczmy, czy w ogóle to działa. Odświeżyło nam się. No i działa. Jakbyśmy zrobili taką samą rzecz w Reakcie, to od razu mogę z boku zademonstrować. Od razu dostaniemy error. Nie możemy użyć hooka poza komponentem, w ogóle jesteśmy źli, coś takiego nie ma miejsca. OK. Więc tak naprawdę to jest przykład na to, że nie wiem, jeżeli chcemy zrobić jakiś globalny stan, możemy sobie potworzyć sygnały, zrobić sobie jakąś strukturę danych, zamknąć to w innym pliku i po prostu wyeksportować. I potem będziemy mogli tego używać. Nie potrzebujemy tutaj jakichś zewnętrznych bibliotek. Więc tak zachowuje się podstawowy state management. Oczywiście jest biblioteka do zarządzania stanem w Solidzie. Teraz nie jestem w stanie przypomnieć sobie jej nazwy, ale jest na którymś ze slajdów. Ale do takich podstawowych rzeczy, eksperymentów możemy użyć tego wszystkiego w ten sposób. Dobra, wróćmy sobie do prezentacji. OK. Dobra, to dokonajmy sobie porównania. Wojna króli. Solid versus React. Zobaczymy, co to będzie. Jak widzimy na slajdzie, mamy komponent app. To trochę nam też się rzuciło w oczy, jak pokazywałem przykład, że tak naprawdę w Reakcie używamy hooków, jest use state, jakby to wszystko wygląda po prostu bardzo podobnie. Czemu? Właśnie, bo zostały zastosowane funkcje, zostało zastosowane deklaratywne API, na które właśnie React wraz z komponentami funkcyjnymi zaczął przechodzić. I tak naprawdę dużo różnic tutaj nie możemy znaleźć. Widzimy, że nie mamy tak naprawdę efektu. Efekt sobie porównamy za chwilę. I że mamy tutaj po prostu metodę a la hooka z Solida, która po prostu robi on cleanup i przy tak zwanym, no, nazwijmy to odmontowaniu komponentu, będziemy jakby wyczyści nam jakby to, co nam zostało. Na przykład jakieś właśnie subskrypcje czy interwał. Jedną z takich jeszcze rzeczy, na którą musimy zwrócić uwagę, no to przy zmiennych. Jeżeli tworzymy sygnały, właśnie przez to, że jest tutaj zastosowana reaktywność, to tak naprawdę sygnał składa się z gettera i settera. I to, co dostajemy właśnie z tego hooka, nazwijmy to w cudzysłowie solidowego, to są metody. I jeżeli chcemy dostać się do wartości, to musimy po prostu wywołać naszą zmienną tak naprawdę, żeby dostać z niej wartość i żeby ona zachowywała, jakby odpowiadała tak naprawdę też na swojego subskrybenta. Więc tak naprawdę dostajemy getter i setter z naszego sygnału i o tym warto pamiętać. OK. Jeżeli chodzi o rendering, to jeszcze ważną rzecz, którą trzeba wspomnieć, Solid pod spodem nie używa właśnie widomu, mechanizmów rekonstylacji i nie wiadomo czego. On po prostu renderuje wszystko do czystego JS-a, bazuje na natywnych elementach po prostu domu i na nich robi update'y. Z ciekawych rzeczy właśnie po skompilowaniu takiego komponentu to można znaleźć w ogóle od razu na stronie Playgrounda Solida, wejść sobie w zakładkę w output i dokładnie ten przykład tam zostanie znaleziony. Mamy po prostu template, który zamieni nam naszego JSX-a już na elementy DOM w naszym JavaScriptowym API. I to tak naprawdę są zwykłe funkcje. Jedna taka rzecz ciekawa, właśnie trochę można powiedzieć magia domknięć. My tutaj z komponentu zwracamy IIFE, czyli po prostu funkcję, która tak naprawdę sama się wywołuje i będzie tworzyła w tym momencie domknięcie na to, co jest w środku. Co do renderów, to też w trakcie przepisywania zobaczymy sobie, jak dużo renderów będzie wymagała część reaktowa, a jak dużo renderów będzie wymagała część, która jest napisana w Solidzie. Jeżeli chodzi o efekty, to już o tym też trochę wspominaliśmy. W Reakcie do efektu przekazujemy metody, które mają się w nim wywołać, gdzie ten efekt zostanie jakby całą logikę, która tam będzie użyta. Jako funkcję jakby zwracaną będziemy robić cleanup, no i nasze nieszczęsne dependency array. Kto kiedyś pisał w klasach i używał tam tych metod, a potem przechodził na efekty, no to jakby wie, o czym mówię. Nie przekazujesz tablicy, wywołuje się zawsze, przekazujesz pustą, wywołuje się raz, potem te zmienne trzeba sprawdzać, co na pewno chcemy tam użyć, żeby ten dany efekt się wywołał. Na początku Na początku to nie było zbyt ciekawe, potem jak już się zrozumie, to jakby faktycznie łatwe, tylko trochę trzeba zmienić punkt myślenia. Ale gdzieś tam w ogóle przy użyciu hooków te dependency array i zastanawianie się nad tym, jakie zmienne muszę przekazać, żeby to się dobrze wywołało, to jest taki trochę pain in the ass. W Solidzie tego nie ma właśnie przez to, że nasłuchujemy na subskrypcję zmiennych, które zostały w danej części naszego komponentu użyte i on jakby sam wie, na którą zmianę powinien ten efekt wywołać, a zamiast zwrotki w funkcji mamy po prostu osobnego ala hooka, który wykona metodę po prostu po odmontowaniu komponentu. Taka ciekawostka jeszcze na dole, mamy use layout effect, to zamiast tego możemy stworzyć też create render effect, będzie to takim małym odpowiednikiem. Dobra, to przejdźmy sobie do przykładu. Jak już widzieliśmy, przepiszemy sobie małą aplikację w Reakcie. Jest to zwykły tak naprawdę call do API, czyli coś, co najczęściej się zdarza. Robimy po prostu calla do API, pobieramy dane i je pokazujemy. Dobra. Mamy komponent reaktowy, przejdźmy sobie szybko przez niego. Tutaj zostawię ten counter, ale żeby zrobić to w Reakcie, musimy utworzyć sobie state. Fajnie by było jeszcze wiedzieć, kiedy elementy się ładują, więc dorzucimy sobie state dla naszego loadera. Tworzymy efekt, ustawiamy loader na true, wywołujemy funkcję na denie, ustawiamy dane, które nam przyszły z serwera i wrzucamy loading na false. Dokonujemy to po prostu przy zamontowaniu naszego komponentu, dlatego mamy pustą arraykę. No jeżeli zróbmy jeszcze takiego ifa, że jeżeli nam się coś ładuje, no to pokażmy faktycznie loading. I już w naszej aplikacji po prostu wypiszmy sobie, przemapujmy przez wszystkie elementy i pokażmy ten element już naszemu użytkownikowi końcowemu. Zwykły, najprostszy przykład w Reakcie, ale spróbujemy sobie to teraz przepisać na Solida. Jeżeli chodzi o Solida, to co musimy zrobić? No jakby wiadomo, na pewno musimy zrobić importy po prostu zamiast Reacta z biblioteki solid.js. Na co musimy zwrócić uwagę? No to na pewno musimy zwrócić uwagę na nazwy, bo tutaj nie jest use i taki nasz hookowa konwencja, tylko tu mamy z reguły create signal, create effect. OK, mamy bardzo podobnie, też tworzymy sobie sygnał, który będzie nam przechowywał te nasze zmiany. Stworzymy sobie sygnał dla naszego loadera, żebyśmy też wiedzieli, kiedy się załączy i możemy podejść do tego tak naprawdę, można powiedzieć, prawie dosłownie. To będzie pierwszy sposób, gdzie tworzymy sobie efekt, używamy set loading. Kod jest bardzo podobny do tego, co mieliśmy. Jedyne, o czym musimy pamiętać, tak jak mówiłem, wykonanie naszych zmiennych, żeby one tak naprawdę zostały zasubskrybowane na zmiany. I tutaj też iterujemy tak naprawdę po każdym elemencie z naszego wywołanego sygnału. Co warto też zauważyć, tutaj nie ma atrybutu key, nie musimy go przekazywać, właśnie też dlatego, że nie ma tam żadnego widomu, mechanizmu sprawdzania zmian i tak dalej, i tak dalej. Jeżeli przejdziemy sobie już do samej aplikacji, ja sobie pozwolę jeszcze odświeżyć, to widzimy, że po napisaniu naszej aplikacji wszystko działa, wygląda identycznie, ale na co można zwrócić uwagę, to na to, co się dzieje w konsoli. W konsoli dzieje się bowiem właśnie to, że apka napisana w Solidzie wyrenderowała się raz. Tam dodałem takiego konsologa po prostu w renderze. Natomiast widzimy, że w Reakcie wyrenderowała się 2 razy. Kto mi powie, czemu wyrenderowała się 2 razy? Nie, specjalnie wyłączyłem strict mode'a.
To compare if there's any errors difference between VDOM, between the renders, probably.
Could you say that again? Sorry, because you don't have a mic.
To find if there's any difference between 2 renders.
It renders like the console log. It's showed twice because we are using effect, which uses use state, and then it calls another render after the data comes from server. That's why. And in Solid, it's because the signals only updated and like the effect not causes any additional renders in Solid. To tak jeszcze gwoli ścisłości, szybko przetłumaczę. Jakby są 2 rendery w Reakcie, bo po zaciągnięciu danych z serwera musimy ustawić naszego state'a i state spowoduje nam kolejny render po naszym efekcie, a w Solidzie tego nie mamy, ponieważ używamy sygnałów i to, co wam pokazywałem z tą właśnie funkcją, która się sama wywołuje i zwraca tą templatkę, jeżeli jakieś dane są zupdate'owane, a jakiś efekt się wykona albo coś będzie to tak naprawdę cały komponent się nie renderuje, więc nie mamy dodatkowych renderów samych w sobie, są tylko zupdate'owane dane, te, które zostały zasubskrybowane na dany sygnał. OK, to było pierwsze podejście, ale możemy użyć czegoś, co można powiedzieć trochę mi brakowało w Reakcie, chociaż jak już widzieliśmy, jak wejdą serwer komponenty, to po prostu będziemy robić await fetch i w ogóle wszystko się wykona. Ale tego mi brakowało w Reakcie. Ja sobie pozwolę teraz zrobić małą magię z odkomentowaniem. Drugą opcją jest coś takiego, że Solid udostępnia nam a la hooka, ja to będę cały czas nazywał, create resource. I on po prostu pod spodem stworzy sobie efekt, wywoła to, przypisze do odpowiedniego sygnału i tak naprawdę ten sygnał już tutaj nam zwróci. Więc będziemy mieli dostęp bezpośrednio do danych i w drugiej opcji, ja również pozwolę sobie tu zakomentować, użyjemy jednego z naszych komponentów, mianowicie komponentu show. I w tym momencie jakby create resource zwróci nam obiekt, w którym będziemy mieli dostęp, coś ala jak dostajemy z React Query, mamy dostęp do zmiennej loading, w której wiemy, że dane na przykład jeszcze się nie załadowały. Tu chyba TypeScript nam to trochę krzyczy, ale go zostawmy w spokoju. I mamy dostęp do zmiennej results, którą po prostu musimy przemapować i dostaniemy wyniki już w naszej aplikacji. Jak widzimy po odświeżeniu nadal to wszystko działa. Więc jeżeli chodzi o to, to jest jedna z rzeczy, która można powiedzieć trochę mnie przekonała, ale tak jak już widzieliśmy też przy server komponentach, jak będziemy mogli sobie po prostu zrobić awaita na naszym fetchu, no to trochę się zmieni. Ale tak jak mówię, to była jedna z rzeczy, która dodana w Solidzie bardzo mnie do niego pchnęła. I na jeszcze jedną rzecz bym zwrócił uwagę, bo o tym zapomniałem wspomnieć, właśnie przez to, że nie ma widomu i Solid po prostu bierze JSX-a i sam sobie parsuje go na odpowiednie rzeczy. Odblokowały nam się nie musimy już pisać class name, tu wystarczy, że użyjemy class jest. I nie będziemy mieli konfliktu ze słowami kluczowymi w tym momencie. Dobra. OK, to tak jeszcze przechodząc one by one trochę między nimi, porównując Reacta z Solidem, no to tak, komponenty są jakby połączone z funkcjonalnością, bo nie możemy tego gdzieś indziej wyrzucić, znaczy możemy użyć hooków, wiadomo, ale to jest dodatkowy effort. W Solidzie komponenty to jest po prostu tworzenie granic, możemy logikę wyrzucić sobie po prostu poza komponent, ona będzie tam działała. W Reakcie musimy przekazać jakby dependency array, to wszystko, co się zmieni, gdzie chcemy robić te update'y. Solid tak naprawdę sam będzie nasłuchiwał na to, co się będzie działo. W Reakcie mamy widom, mechanizm porównywania zmian, sprawdzania tego wszystkiego i dopiero serwowania tego do przeglądarki. W Solidzie tego nie ma, jest po prostu do czystego JS-a kompilowany. W Reakcie do takiej, musimy używać zewnętrznych bibliotek do tworzenia, nazwijmy to, stanu, który będzie poza komponentem. Tak, wiem, jakby kontekst API, ale to jest nadal kolejny narzut, który my musimy wykonać. W Solidzie wystarczy, że przerzucimy sobie nasz sygnał gdzieś poza i tak naprawdę to działa out of the box. Zobaczymy jeszcze sobie w porównaniu jakby bundla, jak sam React w porównaniu do Solida oczywiście jest dość spory, a Solid dość szybki i jednocześnie bardzo mało zajmuje. No ale coś, co na pewno przemawia na korzyść Reacta, jakby jest ogromne community, jest ogromny support, ogromne wsparcie, czego byśmy nie szukali tak naprawdę w trakcie nie wiem, developmentu, to tutaj to znajdziemy. W Solidzie to dopiero tak naprawdę rośnie i musimy czekać, aż osiągnie podobny poziom, no i ten support jest trochę limitowany. Jeżeli chodzi o performance, to jest screen w ogóle ze strony Solida. Solid w porównaniu do Vanilli, jakby Vanilla ma 1 jako odnośnik, no to Solid dostał wynik 1.05, tam potem jest Inferno, Svelte, React, Vue, no i React 1.9.3 praktycznie 2 razy wolniejszy. Ale nie byłbym sobą, gdybym trochę nie pogrzebał, bo oczywiście wiadomo. Jeżeli chodzi o marketing, to wszyscy wrzucą, tak, jesteśmy najszybsi, wszyscy blazingly fast, tak jak już też mówiliśmy o turbopacku, S-buildzie, oni tam się prześcigają o po prostu mikrosekundy, kto będzie szybszy w buildzie. Sprawdziłem to, może nie do końca tutaj widać, ja podeślę jeszcze linka do tego. Jest repozytorium na GitHubie, nie pamiętam dokładnie kogo, sprawdzimy w linku, ale jest zrobiony benchmark tak naprawdę w większości frameworków. I faktycznie Solid tu już jest w nowszej wersji 1.5.4, jest zaraz za Vanillią. Potem możemy zobaczyć, że Solid Store to była ta biblioteka, która nam tworzyła też zarządzanie stanem w Solidzie. Potem można powiedzieć, że jest długo nic. React gdzieś w wersji 18, tu akurat z RX-em jest tutaj, w wersji 17 jest jeszcze dalej. Więc faktycznie na ich stronie te wyniki są takie, jak powinny być. Z ciekawości sprawdziłem, akurat użyli też tego samego benchmarku, więc tylko tutaj mamy trochę aktualniejsze dane. Jeżeli chodzi o bundle size, to po zminifikowaniu wszystkiego i ogarnięciu, no to w Reakcie, w takiej podstawowej apce po prostu stworzonej przez, tu chyba jest akurat CRA i wyrzuceniu, no to mamy 145 KB, Solid przy tym robi po prostu 7.9. Przy po prostu użyciu boilerplate'u z dokumentacji do stworzenia podstawowej aplikacji, więc jak widzimy bundle size też jest mniejszy. Oczywiście musimy też zwrócić uwagę na to, że im więcej będziemy do tego dodawać, no to ten bundle size jednocześnie będzie rósł, więc możemy dogonić Reacta, jeżeli się bardzo postaramy. No, ale rzućmy okiem też na trend. No, jak widać, mamy Reacta i Solid nam trochę szoruje pod dnie z ilością pobrań i z ilością użyć, bo tak naprawdę dla mnie to jest jeden z podstawowych czynników, który sprawdzam, jak będę czegoś używał, czy faktycznie jest ilość pobrań, czy jest jakieś wsparcie. Chociaż ta ilość pobrań nie jest aż taka mała, bo widzimy, że samych to są starsy. No to mamy starsy zaraz, a nie sprawdziłem, kurczę, miałem zobaczyć. Ale jest bardzo duża różnica. No, ale co na to deweloperzy? I wszedłem na State of JS, zobaczyć sobie, akurat tutaj są wyniki z ostatniej ankiety. No jeżeli chodzi o użycie tak naprawdę gdzieś tam w projektach, no to React nadal przoduje, potem mamy Angulara i Vue, czyli tak naprawdę naszą świętą trójcę, ale znowu z drugiej strony, jak sprawdzałem, i w zeszłym roku były bardzo podobne wyniki, jeżeli chodzi o satysfakcję z używania po prostu danego frameworku, no to Solid tak naprawdę bardzo nam tutaj się wybija, bo 91% deweloperów jest zadowolona z tego, że będzie używała i chce używać go w przyszłości. No i odpowiedzmy sobie na to finalne pytanie. Czy w ogóle Solid będzie w stanie zastąpić Reacta? Nie będzie w stanie. Chyba że naprawdę zatrzęsie się ziemia i nagle, nie wiem, zmieni się. Jak brałem kredyt, to też mi doradca mówił, że żeby zwiększyła mi się rata, to musi być albo wojna, albo pandemia. Wiemy, jak się skończyło, nie? Tu może być podobnie, ale raczej tego nie przewidujemy. Tak naprawdę wsparcie, to, że stoi za Reactem wielka firma i to, jak ona też pompuje tak naprawdę Reacta do tego, żeby był używany, raczej nie pomaga Solidowi się wybić. A nawet jeżeli jakimś cudem to będzie, to duże aplikacje, które już zostały napisane, pewnie przepisane z jQuery albo z innych zamierzchłych frameworków, nie zostaną teraz nagle porzucone. Ostatnio gdzieś na YouTubie, chyba na jakimś podcaście słyszałem o jQuery, że nadal 70% stron używa jQuery, jeżeli się po prostu zajrzy w source danej strony. Więc jQuery też nie byliśmy w stanie wypchnąć, przynajmniej go nie używamy, ale niestety czasami trzeba go supportować, więc tutaj też może tak być. Raczej nie przewiduję tego, że Solid zastąpi Reacta, ale warto być otwartym i zachęcam Was do tego, że wrócicie do domu, znajdziecie chwilę czasu, postawcie sobie minimalną aplikację, rzućcie okiem, zobaczcie jak działa, a nuż wam się spodoba, nawet w jakimś swoim side projekcie warto go użyć. I zostawię was trochę na koniec z taką właśnie, z takim trochę morałem. Korzystajmy z rzeczy, bo naprawdę warto. Śledźmy to, bo mogą się pojawić rzeczy, których będziemy chcieli używać, a nuż też możemy się czegoś nauczyć, bo przykładowo Solid swoją reaktywnością, tak naprawdę tutaj jak robiłem research do tego, zgłębiłem się dokładnie jak to będzie działało i na czym to tak naprawdę wszystko polega, więc jeżeli tylko macie taką możliwość, to naprawdę zachęcam. Jeżeli będziecie chcieli zobaczyć nagranie z tej preski, bo już ją wygłaszałem, zostawiam QR kod, można zobaczyć na YouTubie. Z tego co mi wiadomo, nagranie z całego meetupu też będzie na YouTubie w Software Mansion, więc tam też będzie można znaleźć. Zostawiam jeszcze też linka do repozytorium z tymi podstawowymi aplikacjami. Jest dostępnie publiczne, można sobie tam zajrzeć, pobrać i porozwalać, pobawić się i zdobywać doświadczenia. Ja wam bardzo dziękuję. Czy mamy jakieś pytania?
Okej, to ja mam pytanie, po co nam są specjalne komponenty, jak mamy for each'a i if'a w JSX-ie, których możemy skorzystać?
Wiesz co, nie ma jakiejś super przewagi. Chciałem o tym wspomnieć, bo jakby pierwszy raz się z tym spotkałem, że mamy dostęp do czegoś takiego, co może nam teoretycznie ułatwić. Będzie to trochę bardziej deklaratywne, bo wrzucimy to w komponent, nie musimy zagłębiać się, jak to w ogóle będzie działało, skomponujemy sobie to, co chcemy dostać. Na start na pewno będzie trochę łatwiej niż bawienie się z iteracją i tworzeniem czegoś jakby swojego, nie? Plus od razu mamy fallbacki i tak dalej. Można to zrobić samemu, ale po co, jeżeli już mamy, nie? W sensie jakby dokładnie jaki był zamysł, czemu one zostały tam wrzucone, nie wiem. Może napiszę kiedyś do Ryana, się zapytam, po co tam to wrzuciłeś, bo można to szybko napisać samemu, ale tak, no jakby można to wszystko zastąpić i for eachem, switchem i nie pamiętam co tam jeszcze.
Spoko, to jeszcze jedno pytanie, jak Solid sobie radzi z rozpoznawaniem tych kluczy w array'kach, skoro nie ma tego parametru key? Jak mu się pozmieniają rzeczy w kolejności, zostaną wrzucone w środek, jak on trakuje te elementy w arrayce, kiedy robimy tego for each'a?
Dokładnie w sam source code Solida się nie zagłębiałem, ale patrząc po tym artykule na blogu, to on ma po prostu array, jakby każdy obiekt subskrypcji, który jest tworzony przy stworzeniu sygnału, ma swoją arraykę dependencji już tworzoną, z których zmiennych on korzysta i na bazie tego, która jakby wywoła swój setter, on będzie wywoływał całą listę subskrypcji z dependencji arraya, który został tam przekazany, nie? Więc można powiedzieć, że wielki obiekt, który będzie trzymał to, co od czego zależy i będzie tam się wywoływał pod spodem.
Dobra, okej, dzięki.
Super.
Coś jeszcze chyba widziałem. Tu widzę, dobra. Tam jeszcze coś było, ale damy radę.
Dzięki bardzo za tę prezentację. W zasadzie pytanie takie, w tej chwili przy tym, co się dzieje, jeśli chodzi o React, o tym, co wyprawia Next, cały czas mamy jakieś nowe rzeczy, server-side renderings, jakby całe serwerowe komponenty i cały czas jakby stopień skomplikowania dochodzi. A z drugiej strony możemy sobie prostego Reacta przez Vite skonfigurować i zrobić prostą apkę. To jakby jaki use case widzisz dla Solida, co jest takiego, wiesz, czy jest w nim coś, co rzeczywiście powoduje, że warto do niego przysiąść, czy jest to jakby no kolejny wariant Reacta?
Jasne. To nie jest kolejny wariant Reacta. Jakby to, że on wygląda podobnie, zostało zrobione specjalnie, żeby można było łatwiej z Reacta przejść. Jakby to był po prostu taki zamysł, gdzieś tam też w trakcie jakiegoś interview z Ryanem słuchałem, opowiadał o tym, że to jest tak naprawdę zabieg, można powiedzieć, czysto marketingowy trochę, nie? Tak jak było z Javą i JavaScriptem, nazwijmy JavaScript, po prostu więcej ludzi będzie tego używało i spróbujemy zrobić adopcję, nie? Ale pod spodem to działa zupełnie inaczej, nie? Jakby nie ma widomu, jest zupełnie inny mechanizm. Nawet żeby poznać trochę to, jak to działa, wsiąść do Solida, przejść przez blogi na DevTu Ryana, żeby dowiedzieć się o nie detalach takich totalnie jak to zostało zaimplementowane, ale jak takie rzeczy działają pod spodem, jasne, jako nowinka to jest bardzo fajna. Plus jeżeli zależałoby Ci naprawdę Uber na performance i na wielkości na wielkości builda, dodam jeszcze, bo wspominałeś o SSR-ach i tak dalej, na Twitterze ostatnio widziałem, że Solid szykuje swoją implementację jakby Nexta dla Solida, jakby po prostu SSR i całą resztę, więc tylko nie pamiętam jak to się będzie nazywa. Solid Start, no, więc można śledzić i SSR też dostaniemy, nie? Więc jakby to jest pełnoprawny framework, który na pewno wyróżnia się performance'em, wielkością builda i tym jak działa, nie? Jakby warte, tylko tak jak mówiłem też, no duże projekty raczej nie będą na kolejnych, nie wiem, tam milionów czy miliardów dolarów na przepisanie ogromnych apek inwestowały w to, żeby tylko, bo pojawiła się nowa technologia. Zresztą tak jak mówisz, ja sam dostając, nie wiem, jakieś newslettery, czy śledząc to, co w ogóle wychodzi ostatnio, trochę mnie to przyprawiało ból głowy, bo jest tego tyle, ze wszystkich stron jesteśmy tak naprawdę atakowani i tyle zaczęło się dziać, że no naprawdę trzeba dużo zasobów poświęcić, żeby faktycznie być up to date ze wszystkim. Nie?
Albo słuchać newsów od Tomka.
Albo słuchać newsów od Tomka. Jakbym miał QR kod do newslettera, to tam jeszcze bym pokazał. No. Ciekawostka, którą warto sprawdzić produkcyjnie. To dostałem też takie pytanie w kuluarach właśnie, bo czy Solida używałem gdzieś na jakichś projektach takich i w ogóle nie, bo jakby praktycznie go tam aktualnie nie ma. Chociaż oglądałem jedną osobę, nie pamiętam jak się nazywa, ale chyba Zaiste Programming jakby się nazywał kanał czy coś i on jest bardzo takim solid evangelist, pcha go wszędzie do projektów, które robi, więc to jest jedyny use case, gdzie widziałem, że faktycznie w jakimś projekcie on został zastosowany tak jakby tak w pełni.
So like in React we have Redux and all for state management. So do we need such libraries for
In general, yeah, in general we don't need to, but because as I showed on a presentation, we can just simply move signals outside the component and then we have access to it and it reacts on changes, etc. But there is a library called Solid Store, and we can add the library to our project. But I cannot tell you about how it's done and what is inside because I didn't check it.
Thank you.
Okej, o widzę dalej, tyle ludzi.
As I saw in the code, it was calling count in the solid, but yeah, it works differently in the solid rather than React.
Yeah, this is because we have signals that create signal returns in solid the function. Which will return you the newest value of a variable. So you need to call the function to get the newest value inside the component. Like in React, you get just a value, and in Solid you get the getter function who gets you the value. So that's the pattern which is used in Solid. That's why this here.
Yeah. Thank you. And one more thing, you explained render comes 2 times in React and 1 time in Solid. Can you explain in English?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think I did it, but yeah, no problem. In React, you have 2 renders because after we fetch the first render is an initial render. Then we will call the effect on mount of the component which gets the data, and after the data, after we get the data, we call the set characters and set loading function. Like React batch those 2 in one update, and after update the state in React, we have the second render. That's why we have 2 renders inside there. Okay. Oh yeah, and after change the loader status. Yeah, you're right. Because we have, as I need to uncomment, but wait a sec. I will go to the code, and yeah, right. We have 3 renders in React and only 1 in Solid, because as you mentioned, the first update is after setting the loader to true. Yes, after setting the loader to true. And then the 3rd update is after we set the proper data get from the API. Thank you.
Thank you.
I promise I will push it, if I not forgot.
Okej, dalej.
Czyli w sumie, czy jest jakaś sytuacja, że komponent solidowy się przerenderowuje, czy on tylko renderuje się raz na początku?
Nie miałem takiej. Podczas jakby używania i pracy faktycznie takiej nie miałem. Musiałbym to sprawdzić.
Raczej patrząc na ten model, to się nie powinno wydarzać, bo...
No, też raczej tak myślę.
Dostajesz render, a potem już tylko gra w zależności na sygnałach.
Hej, pokazałeś w pewnym momencie, że sygnał można wyciągnąć poza komponent i tam sobie go wywołać tak globalnie, czego w Reactie nie można robić. Znaczy można, ale React jest unhappy, no nie?
No tak.
A są jeszcze jakieś inne restrykcje, takie jak w Reactie, że nie możesz wywoływać hooków w ifie na przykład? Czy to też jest zbudowane na zasadzie kolejności, zaimplementowane na zasadzie kolejności, czy jest parkour?
Jasne. Nie wiem, możemy to zrobić teraz. Raczej nie dostaniemy nic ciekawego, jak zrobimy... jasne, podpowiadaj mi. Ale dobra w sumie. To czasami jest mądrzejsze od nas, nie? Jakby wait a sec. Spróbuję coś takiego zrobić i zobaczymy, czy to będzie miało rację bytu. Już widzę, że jak const to będzie scope, nie? Więc... Nie, to raczej...
No, jak sobie wyrzuć sobie definicję
cannot
tego
find
charakteru.
name,
Wyrzuć sobie
no to bym
definicję.
musiał zrobić jakiegoś leta
No.
na... Chociaż nie, bo to będzie sygnał. To
No,
ja...
właśnie te sygnały w środku są trzymane w jakimś, wiesz, globalnym...
Wait a sec. Ja spróbuję może to... Tak, tylko pytanie jest takie, czy możemy ifa wywołać. A w sumie możemy spróbować. Dobra. Nie wiem, okej, powiedz mi, zrób mi tak, okej. Dostaliśmy,
Ale
jest not defined,
tu masz scope'a, nie?
Nie, bo dostaliśmy listę, nie? Jakby musiałbym to zrobić. Okej, jakby błędu nie dostaliśmy, ale musielibyśmy jeszcze...
Ale ci się ten sygnał nie woła po prostu.
Sprawdzić, czy faktycznie wywoła nam się, jakby dostaniemy dane, ale on się nie wywoła wtedy,
Nie woła ci się poza solidem.
Wait, bo tam było większe count niż ileś.
Jest 1, więc...
No nie, on się wtedy nie
Czyli mimo wszystko
on się wtedy nie wywoła. Nie działa, ale znowu jakby nie dostajemy tego jak w Reakcie, że po prostu mamy hooka, który jest tam w tym obiekcie, w którym są trzymane hooki do update'ów i jak będzie z ifem, to będzie się zmieniała wartość tego, nie? Tylko po prostu to tutaj nie zadziała. Chociaż szczerze chyba wolałbym dostać error na twarz, bo bym wiedział, że jest coś niefajne, nie? No. To niemiłe takie trochę.
Trzeba było jeszcze sprawdzić, czy te sygnały w środku są trzymane w jakimś global register, czy one są tak spełnowane, wiesz, na żywo, to też mogłoby zmienić dużo.
Ciekawy case. Będzie na update, jak będzie volume 3 prezentacji.
Zajebiście. Ktoś jeszcze? Gdzieś? Co coś? Widzę. Obudził się.
No, jak już jestem. To a propos właśnie w temacie takich pułapeczek, nie wiem właśnie, czy to prawda, czy to potwierdzasz, że właśnie w Solidzie jest taka rzecz, to znaczy, że nie można dekonstruować propsów w momencie deklaracji funkcji i właśnie to jest taka pułapeczka, że ludzie się od tego odbijają jak
Spotkałem się z tym, tak, bo jak tworzysz, jak destrukturyzujesz propsa, to będziesz tworzył jakby kopię, shallow copy tych propsów, więc wtedy sygnały przestają działać, nie? Bo potrzebujemy referencji do tej samej funkcji.
Właśnie
Więc
że komponent przestaje być reaktywny i nie widzisz tego w sumie w ogóle.
Tak.
To jest chyba taka pułapka taka właśnie kolejna.
Tak, dokładnie tak. Tylko tu też bym chyba nie dostaniemy błędu samo w sobie, tylko byśmy musieli jakiegoś slinta skonfigurować, żeby nam o tym powiedział, że dobra, nie rób tego, nie? Ale tak, faktycznie, to jest jeszcze... Albo żeby to cofać w trakcie tej kompilacji, no tak.
Okej, czyli jest zabawa też. Dobra, matko, dalej, no dobra, lecimy już. Ostatnia preska, to lecimy.
Mogę 2 pytania?
Jasne. Chciałem powiedzieć, że to będzie ostatnie, ale jak masz 2, to okej.
2 od razu.
Dobra.
Pierwsze takie techniczne. Powiedziałeś, że TypeScript krzyczy i naprawdę dość dużo krzyczy w Solidzie. Czy jest jakiś sposób, żeby to działało poprawnie?
Tam,
Nie,
tak, ale
rzeczy,
ja
na
mówiłem...
z tym show i TypeScript tego nie ogarnia, że jak show i ty masz coś w środku.
Aha, tutaj on...
Takie rzeczy, tam dużo takiego.
Tak, on krzyczał o Eny, bo ja sobie w ogóle...
Nie, ja nie o tym pytaniem w ogóle. Jak TypeScript z Solidem?
Solid jakby od początku był z TypeScriptem, więc tutaj jakby używamy TypeScripta i to jest wsparcie do TypeScripta jest jakby też out of the box, można powiedzieć.
To dobrze. I jeszcze takie pytanie. Powiedziałeś, że nigdy nie zastąpi Reacta, ale załóżmy...
Znaczy z kredytem też mówiłem, nie?
Robisz swój startup na 3 osoby.
Tak.
Wybierzesz Solid czy nie?
To jest naprawdę dobre pytanie.
shots
To jest
fired.
naprawdę dobre pytanie. Mam taki swój side projekcik, ale skorzystałem z Nexta i TRPC. No niestety, SSR trochę tutaj nie przemówił. Ale czy skorzystałbym z Solida? Kurczę, nie wiem. W sensie myślę, że nie do końca, bo jakby startup się szybko zeskalował, to ja bym też potrzebował ludzi, a jako, że to jest młoda technologia, to mało ludzi by się na tym dobrze znało, więc raczej biznesową decyzję nie. No to już wtedy nieliczni, nie? To trzeba było zlecić badanie rynku, ile jest, ile ten, więc raczej nie, tak szczerze raczej nie, ale jestem osobą, która raczej gdzieś tam stara się racjonalnie stąpać po ziemi, a mniej ryzykować, więc
poza
myślę,
kredytami,
tak. Ale to na mieszkanie, to wiesz, inwestycja mówimy. Dobra, super. Ja jeszcze raz bardzo wam dziękuję za udział. I tu miała być kropka, ale jakoś tak nie do końca
I brawo.
poszło. Dziękuję bardzo.
Okay, I'm just gonna say a few last words in English.
Można mnie jeszcze złapać.
Cudownie. So, yeah, before you all go, as I said, I have some tickets. Nobody came to me with presentation, so, let it be. I have one ticket for Meet.Js Summit, September 29 in Wrocław. So, if anybody wants, if nobody wants, I'm gonna go. No issue with that. But if anybody wants, I'm gonna check your, how good were you listening. So if anybody wants the ticket to Meet.Js Summit, you need to tell me one difference between React Native and Expo from the first presentation. And if nobody just stand up and tell me. Who knows? Just stand up. Without hands, stand up, yeah.
So like React Native is open source, and again Expo is owned by a company, so it's again open source, but part of the services you get paid.
Is that... Okay, yeah, good enough. Okay, cool. Bravo. So, yeah, so find me, or I'll find you, and I'm gonna give you a ticket to Meet.Js Summit. And then I have the last one, but as I said, it's just in a week. So we have a JS Nation conference, and it just happens by accident that I have one free ticket. So I'm just gonna skip the questions because it's in a week. So if anybody wants this ticket and is willing to go to Amsterdam in a week, just find me. I'm gonna give you a ticket because I'm nice like that. Other than that, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your attendance. Thank you for all the speakers and for the software mention, for being a great host and giving us beer and food and everything. Yeah, bravo, Michał. And next meetup is happening in a month, something like that. So, I'm gonna keep you posted on the meetup group, on our meetup group, and also my friend pushed me to start an AI-focused meetup. So we're gonna spawn something like that. We're gonna see how it goes, and it's actually gonna be it's gonna be about practical use of AI. And Marcin, who sits there, is gonna speak on this meetup. Yeah, this guy. So it's gonna also happen in a month. So we're gonna have one AI meetup and then a week later an JS meetup. I'm gonna also keep you posted. So I think it's gonna be a fun event because you will be able to learn about practical use of ChatGPT, BART, and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm gonna keep you posted about it. Hope I'll see you there also. Think it's all from my side. Yeah, I think I didn't forget anything. So see you in a month. Thank you so much for coming, and bye-bye.
Czerwca w Sadle.